Hey guys, it's producer Ben Hosley here.
And it is Marie Barty.
We have a quick announcement. Blank Check is doing a live show on March 23rd at 8 o'clock at the Opera House in Brooklyn, New York.
It's a fancy sounding venue in Williamsburg. And Griffin, David, Ben, and I are going to be celebrating the show's 8th anniversary with a tribute to the magic of the movies, specifically the magic of the theatrical experience. From the Let's All Go to the Lobby animated snacks to the Regal Cinema roller coaster, from Nuvi with Maria Menounos to Nicole Kidman's AMC ads, we're going to be recapping and riffing on the best of the best in movie theater pre-shows.
Plus, we'll have some surprise special guests and very stupid bits.
Of course.
So to get your tickets, you can click the link in the description. The public sale will go live on January 23rd at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we hope to see you there.
Blank check with Griffin and David. Blank check with Griffin and David. Don't know what to say or to expect. All you need to know is that the name of the show is Blank Check.
I'd like to ask you about your hobbies. Now, when you sacrifice a goat and you rip its heart out with your bare hands, do you then summon hellfire, or do you just send out for a podcast? This miniseries is going to be murder.
Well, don't worry. We do leave Scotland eventually. So
I know.
You know, at least you'll have to, He went all over the world.
Not to call my shot, I think my McGregor is better in the next episode.
Can't say I remember. So, I don't know. I feel like that was one of those in and outs.
I think I did a better job. It was a little in, it was a little out, but it was in. It was in. We recorded that one already.
Mm-hmm.
I just think this is going to be a tricky miniseries. Not just the McGregor of it, but all of it. Listen, it's going to be a good series, though.
Mm-hmm.
This is Blank Check with Griffin and David. I'm Griffin.
I'm David.
It's a podcast about filmographies, directors who experience massive success early on in their careers and are given a series of blank checks to make whatever crazy passion projects they want. Sometimes those checks clear and sometimes they bounce, baby. And sometimes the babies crawl on the ceiling.
That's true. Not in this. Sometimes those babies, I don't know.
There's a creepy wind-up baby in this one as well.
That's true.
It feels like a little bit
doll.
of foreshadowing.
A little foreshadowing, yeah.
Little doll. This is... What's that? Wait a second. You see off in the desert? It's so hot. The heat lines, distortion. I can't see. There's like a man on a horse. Far off. Hello? Hello? Trying to invoke like Lawrence of Arabia, the Omar Sharif introduction. Who's that over there? Oh my God, he's slowly coming into focus. That's no man. David, atop this horse. A new miniseries.
Wow.
Read a whole article while you
A
did
mini-series.
A new miniseries.
Riding a dang horse.
Riding a dang horse.
Honestly, well,
What?
I was going to say, I feel like the director we're covering is sort of like the anti or the response to the sort of broad classical filmmaking that you're talking about.
David Lean? Sure.
But he's done some more epic stuff. But he's jittery and wild and energetic.
Don't you think he's more the direct response to Merchant Ivory, who were kind of running
Absolutely.
the table on the perception of British film at that point in time?
But then, of course, he did make his David Lean-esque epic yesterday.
Yes.
Today.
Folks, we're talking about Danny Boyle.
Welcome to 2023. Happy New Year. I know it's like the fourth episode of 2023, but It's our first episode
we
of 2023.
We did some Sellex. We did a Shyamalan. Has that already come out?
No,
at this point?
that'll be in a couple weeks.
And now we're talking about Danny Boyle. It's a miniseries called Train Spud Casting.
You were waiting with bated breath.
Train Spud Casting.
For that, and that's what it is.
And
it's called Train Spud Casting.
Better the more quickly you say it. Train Spud Casting.
Yes.
Today we're talking his debut film. It's called Shallow Grave.
1995's Shallow Grave.
Now,
94, 95.
David, it's 2023, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know that the bit is retired for good.
That's right.
The bit is retired.
No bit.
There's no bit. So I am going to say David is truly, he walked into the studio wearing
Wow.
his no bits shirt.
That's right.
A real statement piece. And so in the name of starting the year off on the right foot, I want to say that, of course, David grew up in England.
Whoa! Yes, that's right.
I
Now-
will also say it. David grew up in England.
When did I live in England?
This is a thing that
What
both of us knew.
ages?
Oh, fuck.
I've only said it a million fucking times.
13 to 21.
9 to 22.
Okay.
Good guess.
1995 to 2008.
I almost maybe could have done the years better than the ages, but yeah, the math in my head was clearly wrong.
No.
Look, I'm recovering from a couple days of NyQuil. David,
Yes.
I bring this up because not to relitigate shit. There was a Reddit thread I found very funny,
What was it?
complaining about the notion that we were covering Danny Boyle and that we, a group of Yanks, were unqualified. How dare a show without a British voice
Sure. Right.
talk Danny
Weigh
Boyle?
in on this guy. Right. Even though we fucking did a Miyazaki miniseries. I guess people yelled at us about that too.
And people yell at us about
about
it.
all kinds of things.
Yeah, people yell at us when we talk about Americans.
Yeah.
People yell at us when we talk about our breakfast.
No, but I did grow up in Britain.
You
And
were
not
very
only did
defiant
I
about
grow
this.
up in Britain, I grew up in Britain when this man was making movies and
Yes.
changing British culture. So it's
Yes.
even more specifically. And I have a goddamn British passport. And I know I sound the way I sound, but I am English.
This is why I'm bringing it up. You were very defiant about this.
I am.
Because the thread was like a bunch of people going, the bit's retired.
Yes.
And then other people going, I don't think he's doing the bit.
Oh, in the thread. Sure. But
Yeah.
is this how we want to start our new
Yes,
miniseries? Okay.
because you have wanted to do Danny Boyle for a long time. And one of the many reasons you wanted to do Danny Boyle is we haven't done a proper British filmmaker
Yeah.
making films in the UK.
Obviously, we did Christopher Nolan. The man is English, but he did leave England right away, essentially.
After the first movie.
He made like Dunkirk is obviously, that's
Yeah.
well, he made that in France actually, so it doesn't even
Oh,
count.
no,
But right, so like we've never really done a British filmmaker. Obviously, we've had plenty of them on the bracket,
sure.
right? Hitchcock, Lean.
Heard of him?
I don't know. Who else have we had? The Powell and Pressburger we've had on the bracket. The
Mike
most
Lee?
English
Have we ever
filmmaker.
put Mike Lee on the bracket? Powell and Pressburger we have twice.
I put Mike Lee on
On
my
your
bracket.
personal
yes.
bracket.
That would be
That would
quite
be-
a mini series.
That would be
if we did
quite a
Mike Lee.
mini-series. Yeah.
I
The
would love-
Archers.
Yeah, the Archers.
Yeah.
But Danny Boyle, look, we both like some of Danny Boyle's we both like, for example, you and I have long both cherished our love of his film Sunshine, a classic
that
kind of
is
movie
a
for this
shared film of
podcast.
ours that we love. And in the early
A
days,
famous bounce that we both
Yes.
appreciate.
in the very early days of doing this podcast, when we were still in the Star Wars days and we were thinking about doing isolated one-off episodes, we would throw out like, what are movies that we'd love to talk about? And in that initial batch of films, I think before we even really settled on the director miniseries idea, it was like, I'd love to do a Hulk episode. We'd love to do a Sunshine
Exactly.
episode.
These are the kinds of things we think about.
Right. So Sunshine is an episode we've been building up to in our entire run. Steve Jobs is a movie you fight for constantly.
I adore. One of my favorite movies of the century.
But very much a guy you've been pushing for a very long time, who I'm a big fan of as well.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about your history with Danny Boyle as someone who, of course, I acknowledge, grew up in England when this man's films were coming out?
Danny Boyle. Well, I saw these first two films that we're going to cover, Shallow Grave and Trainspotting,
Mm-hmm.
at a young age. And they were formative in that they were formative for everyone of my age in
Mhm.
British culture. They were the cool Brit movies. Richie is the other guy, obviously.
Sure.
And he's been on our brackets too.
Mhm.
But like, in my opinion, Guy
It's
Ritchie
actually
is...
kind of wild that we put him on our brackets.
Guy Ritchie?
Yeah.
He has a thing.
Here's the thing.
And he's made really, really weird projects.
He has.
He's also made franchise garbage, but like, he's made like Revolver.
The idea of having to do him at this point feels untenable.
It might be
feel
tough
like-
at this point.
Well,
Although, have you seen Dave Rath?
No, I hear it's good. Ben's putting up his
He's a
fisticuffs.
boxer. But like when I'm a teenager in England,
Mhm.
the
Producer Ben.
coolest English movies, there's this wave of exciting,
Yeah.
vibrant, sort of often crimey British movies, right? Like
Mhm.
while America's having its Quentin Tarantino boom and then the wave that follows,
Yeah.
right? Everyone's like, let's all do movies about gangsters who shoot each other. Britain's doing its own version of that, sort
Mhm.
of. Except one of the launch movies for that is just a movie about 3 roommates who turn on each other over a bunch of money.
It is
Like when you see
wild.
the cover of this,
Yeah.
especially the classic poster, which is just the shovel.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, is it like Blood Simple? Is this kind of like a really pulpy crime movie?
Sure.
And it's like, yes, it is a crime movie,
Yeah.
but really it's just about like yuppies turning on each other.
It's an odd film, and I had to keep on trying to place myself.
I watched this movie as a 13-year-old and was
Yeah.
like, wow, so cool.
Yeah.
What did I relate to in this movie?
That's the thing. I don't say this backhandedly, right?
But I wasn't the only one. Like,
Yeah.
me and my teenage friends, we were all like, ooh,
I think this is a good movie, but I also had to keep on reminding myself while watching it, like placing myself in the context of when this film came out.
Mm-hmm.
And how much this movie was like a statement against what the status quo of British cinema was at the time.
Absolutely.
And that this film now, like, you have to understand this movie as sort of like the breaking point. Right.
Along with other movies, obviously. But it's just like that thing. Like, so when I'm a teenager, he makes Shallow Grave and Trainspotting. We're all like,
Yeah.
this is it. And by the time The Beach is coming out, it's that post-Britain, booming Britain in the 90s,
Mhm.
where everyone's like, okay, the party's over. We're getting lame again. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And then he goes on to have the most interesting career
Yeah.
that hops through every genre,
Yeah.
that works on big scales and tiny scales.
Yeah, well, because the Beach Life Less Ordinary doubleheader, obviously in the reverse
tough.
of the order I said, is tough and feels like a classic. Oh, here's like a great local filmmaker who gets swallowed up by the Hollywood machinery. He starts working with big stars at studio budgets, and it's just not translating, right?
But I think it's like, you lost what's cool.
Yeah.
Like those, like, shit, you had what was cool for a second. It's so hard to hold on to that.
Absolutely.
And now you're still trying to make cool movies and you've lost it. And then when 28 days later, it's like, ooh, you got it back
Well,
again.
that's what's fascinating is then he just becomes like a genre experimenter. He becomes one of these guys where he's like, I'm going to do every type of movie, which is not what you would expect from the start of his career, right? Like you look at these first 4 films and you could easily see him becoming Guy Ritchie, for example,
For
where it's
sure.
like he goes in
I
between
have my thing. Yeah,
steady
yeah, yeah.
studio hand stuff and being like, I'm going to keep on making different versions of Trainspotting into my 60s.
100%. I'm looking at like the best British film award.
Of course, he did make a second Trainspotting in his 60s. Go on.
That's true, he did. But people demanded that. Well, we'll talk about it.
We're
later.
gonna talk about all of them.
But it's just one of those directors where
Mhm.
I kind of went all the way out on him, like a lot of people.
Sure.
Then quietly went back in,
Yeah.
and now he holds an incredibly dear place in my heart, despite the fact that he's made he's swung and missed a few times.
He has.
And so I've always wanted to do him, and I wanted to do a modern British filmmaker. It'd be fun to talk about modern Britain, because it'll be great whenever we do Powell and Pressburger.
Yes.
But those guys are the most British filmmakers of all time, and that they are about, sort of wobbly chinned guys with mustaches who are like, I just don't know about all this. And you're like, look, I'm horned. I love it, but it's a little bit of a yesteryear thing. Yeah, you love it. You're just thinking about Roger Livesey or
I
something
am.
like that. Yeah.
That's David. That is exactly what I'm thinking
Yeah,
about.
I mean,
Yes.
why wouldn't you be?
Yeah.
But these are interesting, vibrant movies. I feel like I keep saying vibrant.
Mhm. Energetic.
Had you ever seen Shallow Grave before?
I had not.
Didn't think so, Ben.
No.
Because the thing with Trainspotting is that was the true crossover hit.
Yes.
This movie was huge in Britain, but it was a niche film in America.
It's also it was the highest grossing local British film of its year
Yes.
with $6 million.
Pounds.
excuse me, pounds, which speaks to
Sterling. Pound sterling.
Sure.
Yeah.
Train Spotting does 3 times that in the UK alone.
Maybe. Jesus, does it? Let's see. We're
What
gonna
are
talk
on
about Train
pounds? Like the Queen?
The Queen is on one side. Well, now it would be the King,
Hey.
but back in the day, it was the Yon Queen.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, you got various people, various sort of,
Various people.
Well, they switch them out sometimes. I can tell you who's on the current pound notes if you want to know.
Ralph.
Wearing his Las Vegas shirt.
Mhm.
So on the current pound notes, let's see, are apparently Winston Churchill's on the
Okay.
5.
Heard of him?
Heard of him.
Heard of him?
A little boring.
He's got a stogie.
No, let's see. What's the picture of him look like?
Eating a sandwich.
He's just kind of, looking like a big bulldog.
Drinking some sherry.
It
He
should
did love sherry.
They should have quotes. They should-
That's just his quote. I know he had a lot of famous quotes.
I'm just saying it should be Churchill on the back of every bill, but each bill is a different face and a different quote.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Jane Austen is on the 10.
Okay.
We love her.
We love her.
stand. JMW Turner is on the
Wow.
20. Turner.
Mr. Turner.
Who dat?
A painter, a famous painter. Did like insanely cool, sort of like beginning of Impressionism. Look at that shit. So good.
And the back of
Wow,
the bill
pretty.
is the scene from
That's
the
from
movie.
the 1700s, Ben. Like, that's how old that is. Huh?
The back of the bill is just exactly the scene from the movie when he grabs a woman's crotch and keeps his hand there for 2 minutes without looking, right?
Yes. And he's referencing the Mike Leigh film Turner, which is really good. And on the
Incredible
50, we now call them computers, Alan Turing.
Ah.
But before then, you had Charles.
Fascinating guy, Turing. Wild
was
story.
Dickens. When I was a kid, Dickens was on the 10.
Okay.
And Darwin was on the 10 for a while. Florence Nightingale, Isaac Newton. Britain's got a lot of people they can
Bruce
dredge up.
Forsyth. Yeah.
How do you know Bruce Forsyth?
I knew I was going to impress you with
you
that
got
one.
me with Bruce Forsyth.
Thank you. Suggs for madness.
Of course, Suggs. Yeah, he's actually currently on the 100.
Yeah.
They don't have 100.
Trying to think of celebrity polls that will impress David.
Suggs is less impressive to me because knowing about madness makes total sense.
Yeah, but
because that's a
Suggs-
fun band.
But
I know
Suggs.
Suggs is a good poll.
Thank you.
How do you know Bruce Forsyth?
I'm not going to tell.
What's a good comp for Bruce Forsyth?
First of all, I believe Bruce Forsyth hosted an episode of The Muppet Show.
I mean, that's possible.
Secondly,
Looks like he did. Yes.
there's a really good Bruce Forsyth bit on Toast of London.
Okay. What's that?
Toast of London, the Matt Berry show.
Oh, sure. I've never watched that.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
I believe you.
But there's an episode where a woman has had plastic surgery to look more like Bruce Forsyth.
He had a very sort of pointy head.
Yes.
Bruce Forsyth. But like,
And Matt Berry, in his voice, which I can barely imitate, just keeps on saying, Bruce Forsyth.
Bruce Forsyth is a good example of when I left England.
Yeah.
I would when I would come back and
Yeah.
I would be like hanging out with my friends, I'd be like, is Bob Monkhouse still alive? And they'd be like, no, he died. And I'd be like, shit. Like, I can't find out about that in America. He's not famous
Oh,
there.
sure.
Like, no one's going to tell me when these guys die. Bruce Forsyth was another. I'm like, I'm not going to hear about that.
He lives until like 99, I think.
He lived till 89.
Okay.
He died a few years ago. Who's like a perpetual game show host type guy in America?
Chuck Woolery.
Sure.
Great poster.
I don't know who that is, but sure.
No, I'm saying he's a great poster, Chuck Woolery.
Oh, yeah, that's the thing. He's like a political
Yeah, he
figure now.
sucks.
Fucking
Okay.
who does Wheel of Fortune?
Yeah, like Sajak.
But the thing with Sajak is like that guy hosts Wheel of Fortune.
Mm.
Sure.
Bruce Forsyth hosted like 5 different game shows.
Okay.
Like whenever one would end, he'd get another one.
Okay, I got a good example.
He was like a consummate host.
I got a good example.
Yeah.
I got a good American equivalent. You know Mark Wahlberg, the other one who's not Mark Wahlberg but hosts game shows?
But not Donnie.
No, his name is Mark Wahlberg.
I don't.
And he never changed it.
But okay.
And he has been hosting game shows regularly
yeah,
since
I
the
see him.
90s.
He hosts like Antique Roadshow and stuff. But like famous. Bruce Forsyth was
I know.
famous. Like the Queen knew him.
Yes.
It's Britain's
You
weird.
don't have to tell me that Bruce Forsyth's famous. I'm the one who
You've
threw out
heard
the
of him.
reference.
Like, even you know who he is.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a concept
But like this
I love.
is the thing about Britain where you're like,
Yeah.
why is that fucker famous? And they're like, he just is.
Yes.
And we love him. And I'm like, he barely seems talented. And they're like, well, shut up.
This is the thing I
don't
love.
care.
It speaks so much to the class obsession of the UK, right?
Mhm.
that someone like Bruce Forsyth is like formally referred to as a light entertainer.
Yes, light entertainment.
Right.
Absolutely.
That there's this type of celebrity
Ant
where
and
it's
Dec
like,
are today's,
Yes.
best example of
but
that.
there's this sort of like diminishing kind of like,
but it's
what does he do? He's a light entertainer.
That's exactly it, though. It's like, what do you do? Do you act in films? No. Not good at that.
Yeah.
Do you have a TV show where you like play characters?
Yeah.
No. You don't do sketches?
Are you a singer?
No.
I sing a little.
I can sing.
Are you a
I
dancer?
Can dance a little.
I have danced.
What are you? I'm just good at getting the guest from the floor to the stage. Yeah. I'm good at that kind of stuff. I'm good at 2 minutes of banter.
I'm a light entertainer.
Well, presenter is the official title, right? Usually.
Yeah.
But presenter is more formal. Light entertainer is like, know your place.
In Britain, it's like there's this whole. I don't know why we're talking about this because Danny Boyle is not really going to touch on this stuff. But although he made a Who Wants to Be a Millionaire movie,
He did.
And Chris Tarrant, who's the host of the British Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, is another great example of this trend.
A light entertainer.
Where it's like it's like, well, why are you so rich? Well, I host a radio show in the morning.
Yeah.
And then in the afternoon, I'm filming my BBC documentary where I like tour the world's great railroads.
Right.
And then at 5 p.m., turn on your TV, I'm hosting a game show. And then at 9 p.m., I'm on the other channel hosting like Strictly Come Dancing or whatever. Hosting, some other competition show.
I mean, like Seacrest is our equivalent.
Seacrest is, there you go. Or fucking Dick Clark. Dick
Right.
Clark is the example.
But both of those guys are thought of here as moguls.
Well, now they're
They're
true.
business geniuses. No one's like
Dick Clark is the good example where
Yes.
it's like, what are you good at? And the answer is nothing.
Yeah.
But he's okay at a lot of things.
Regis
and can
was-
kind of keep things.
Regis was
is
the
a great-
best of them.
But Regis, at least, he hosted a fucking talk show.
Yes.
I know it was a morning show.
No,
But it's a slightly,
no, Regis,
that's,
I'm
yeah.
saying Regis was the best of them. And also
Yes,
like
he was the best.
Regis was funny.
Yeah. And like, I'm not to even, Bruce Forsyth had his problems, but, he could be funny in his way.
I don't know what you're talking. I don't think Bruce Forsyth has any problems. He's my favorite light entertainer.
I mean, the whole thing in Britain is like you eventually get canceled because you just eventually you're like, well, Britain used to be a bit jolly good back in the day, and everyone's like, what do you mean, buddy? How back in the day are we going? Britain was pretty jolly bad.
And what was the good part in your opinion?
Exactly.
Did Bruce do that? Did Bruce step in it?
100% all the time.
Wow.
I was just thinking about when Regis was Shrek.
Oh, that was
best.
that is actually
Maybe the best.
That is like anti-comedy. That is
Yes.
like Tim
Yeah.
Heidecker level brilliance.
Yeah.
Anytime Regis went on Letterman was just so good.
Absolutely.
The sheer contempt Letterman
Wasn't
had.
Letterman's line to him, "You look like you just ate some bad clam chowder"? And then Regis like genuinely was like, "Took me 8 hours to get in this makeup."
Gonna have to watch that later. All right, this is Blank Check. We're talking Danny Boyle,
Boyle.
baby. We're not talking about British light entertainers.
I'll say my history of Danny Boyle, I think 20 Days Later was the first one I saw in theaters. I
Makes
was
sense.
mostly just, that's the age. I'm like 13 or whatever. I'm starting to go see these movies, these cool specialty arm releases.
Yes,
I'm getting into horror movies. It hits all the buttons, right?
yes.
And everyone's like, "Can you believe Danny Boyle made this movie?" And
And
then I'm
you're
like, "Who the fuck is Danny Boyle?" So then I watched.
But maybe you had
Trainspotting.
heard of Trainspotting.
I knew what Trainspotting was, but I didn't put a name to it. So then I went back and watched Trainspotting. I had never seen Shallow Grave.
And you
I
never
have not
had.
seen Life Less Ordinary
Sure.
or The Beach. I'm excited to watch
Mhm.
both for the
Beach
first
is
time.
Crazy.
And then post 28 Days Later, I believe I see everyone in theaters.
You saw Millions,
Yep.
Sunshine,
Yep.
Slumdog Millionaire.
Yep.
127 Hours.
Yep.
Trance.
Oh, you know what? I didn't see Trance, and I didn't see.
You saw Jobs in theaters.
I saw Jobs in theaters.
And you
I saw
didn't see
Yesterday in
T2.
theaters. I didn't see T2.
No.
Okay. Those are
But
most.
yeah.
Yeah.
By and large, you would keep up with him.
Yeah, I was in at that point. Yeah.
Shallow Grave, I first watched, and I remember this very clearly.
Mhm.
I was in what you freaks would call the 6th grade,
And you would call it?
year 7.
What the fuck?
I know, bizarre.
Because
Uh,
kindergarten is one?
I don't fucking know. I honestly, I
It
don't
would
know.
have to be. If you're
I-
one ahead of us, you're starting.
But it's-
Kindergarten is
but
one.
I guess maybe it is because in England, kindergarten, at least when I was a kid, was called reception, which I've always thought is so funny. I guess it's sort of like welcome. You're
doesn't
in
make-
the reception of school, the lowest grade.
But then why would?
But maybe they start at 4. Maybe that's how it gets offset. You know what I mean? Like,
Right, because what year one would be Jack Black and Michael Cera, obviously, but it would also
Look,
be.
all I'm going to tell you is that I was in what English people would call year 7, and any English listener knows that.
Got it.
But
I just
sixth
want
grade.
you to. You don't have to reward me. The restraint.
All right.
I'm just saying.
In year 7,
Pavlovian. I want to say, how do you
I
know
was
that
in-
over and over again?
I was
Every
in-
single thing you say.
we had music class.
Repressing it.
Shush. Once a week in my
Mhm.
my school.
Okay.
And, I pitied these poor music teachers because they were essentially dealing with 25, 30 kids.
Sure.
I'm like 11 or 12, right? And, you're going to try and teach us music for 40 minutes. It's like once a week. What kind of consistency can you really build up there? Obviously, some of us take instruments, so it's not that.
Yeah.
what did you
instruments
play?
are fun to hit your friends with.
You can make a lot of noise. What?
Yeah.
We can but of course, yes, there was a lot of mallets. You're giving mallets to kids.
What did you play?
What did I play?
Yeah.
I played the piano. And then in when I was a teenager, I tried to learn the
David Sims
drums.
tickling the ivories.
I tried to learn the drums, and I was all right at it, but it's like you gotta really practice. And when
Sure.
it came to the it's time to get drums in your house, I was like, I'm not.
I'm still pissed that my parents wouldn't let me play drums.
It would have. I think that's a penny wise pound foolish decision on your parents' part. I think if they had put a drum set in your basement,
Or
it
the
would
garage
have
or whatever. Yeah.
it would have redistributed a lot
Yeah.
of energy that otherwise went into general tomfoolery and rapscallion business.
And you've got drummer energy.
I mean, it's something I was so jealous of that my friends who were able to convince their parents to let them do it. And I just think it's like a fucking cool thing to
But
do.
don't you think it would have been a release valve for you?
Absolutely.
You would've-
Yeah.
You would have stayed at home studiously playing your drums.
Fucking get some aggression out, man.
Yeah. And then you would have come upstairs calm, hair slicked back.
Yeah, but then I
Bow
might have
tie.
ended up being in bands and stuff. And
That's
that might
where
have
the
led
right.
me
That's where the
kind
road
of
can get a
then
little
down
twisted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bad road.
But still, you apply yourself.
Mhm.
Could have
But
been
anyway,
in a grindcore band or something.
I just remember it was it must be the end of the school year.
Mhm.
And Mr. Smedley, God bless him. I wonder if he's still teaching.
Okay.
We're talking, Jesus, I'm old. We're talking almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Or fuck, maybe, more than 25 years ago.
Jesus.
Was let's watch a movie. It's the end of the year.
Sure.
And my friend Asher,
Mhm.
little troublemaker,
Okay.
had Shallow Grave, which is rated 18.
Yeah.
It's like a, adult movie. He was like, "Can we watch Shallow Grave?" And Mr. Smedley clearly
You
did
just
not know.
had the VHS on him?
Yes, because it was that thing where at the end of the year, a lot of teachers were like, "Do you want to
Oh.
watch a video?" And I think kids would bring. I would
Come
do
loaded
it too.
for bear.
I would
Sure.
bring videos,
Yeah.
being like, maybe we can sneak South Park on here. So you know what I mean?
I remember getting my math class to watch Back to the Future
That's fun.
in a similar
That's
way.
fun.
Where
That's
I
fun
was,
for the whole family.
It was great. Yeah.
We were a bunch of boys. I went to a boys' school.
Humble brag.
All boys. Not a humble brag.
Did you eat your meat?
Did I eat my meat?
You can't have any pudding if you don't eat your meat.
What?
You're okay. Do you smell bread?
It's from the
The
pink.
wa-
it's
the
from
wall?
the pink. Yeah, it's from the wall.
Okay.
I just imagine
Then that's
what
what
all boys
English school
schools
is just like. We're all in our little I did wear a uniform. I
Yeah,
was single sex
see?
education and uniforms, very common in England.
Can someone please make fan art of David in the style of the wall?
Yeah,
Yes.
someone do that. Okay. Mr. Smedley, God bless him, clearly did not know what Shallow Grave was.
Sure.
Now, maybe the title Shallow Grave should have been enough
Yeah.
of a red flag for him.
Sure.
But he was clearly like, huh? Oh, okay. And we put on Shallow Grave. And I remember I had the initial thing of this is like a grown-up movie. I'm like 12 years old, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm like, is this going to be fucked up? And then we were all just completely mesmerized by it.
Wow.
I think because it felt so grown up.
Yeah.
And then when Carrie Fox was tits out early on, Mr. Smedley was like, whoa, what's going on here? But
But he didn't turn it off?
no, he let us watch the first 40 minutes
Okay.
of it.
Okay.
And then I think I
Then you had to
watched
rent
it on
it.
TV
and-
later.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But that was my first
Wow.
exposure. Very
Wow.
clear memory.
Yeah. Wow.
No,
huge.
Mr. Smedley clearly was just like, well, I've taken the L here. They're already watching.
I'm in
it.
too deep.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? What am I going to do? Turn it off now and be like, I didn't realize Shallow Grave was bad?
But he
it
wasn't
was
gonna.
kind of just please, can no one mention this?
He wasn't
you
gonna
know.
finish it next class. It was
No, it wasn't that.
one and done.
Yeah, it wasn't like, okay, Asher, make sure you bring it back. Don't rewind the tape.
Yeah.
we'll pick up here.
Yeah.
Christopher Eccleston's drilling holes in the ceiling. Wonder what that's about.
Okay, so you said this right before recording. This movie has 2 doctors in it.
Sure does.
Peter Davidson?
No. I wasn't being. Although John Hodge, who's Peter Davidson?
Why am I Davison? Am I getting the name right? There's a guy in this movie who, for a second, I thought was one of the other doctors, an earlier doctor. Maybe I'm.
No, he's not. Oh, yeah, of course. Peter Davison is. He was what, the third?
No, 6th.
No, this movie has 2 doctors.
Peter
in it.
Davison was the 5th doctor.
There you go. There's a lot of Peter Davisons out there. What do you want from me?
I don't know.
He's the one after Tom Baker
Yes.
with the celery on his
Yes.
lapel. Yes.
Yes.
No, this movie has 2 doctors in it. Who and Sleep.
That's a buzzer. It's good.
Then if you could
Swish.
put a swish and then the crowd going wild from NBA Jam. Thank you.
There was someone in this movie I thought was Peter Davison. I was proud of myself.
No, I don't think so.
No, I was wrong. Okay, well, incredible joke. 5 comedy points.
Thank you.
He's on fire.
And the movie does have Gary Lewis for a second. He's one of the prospective roommates, I think.
And
he plays Billy Elliot's dad in Billy Elliot.
Oh, of
really
course.
good performance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe him. You know,
No,
he's got
no,
a face you can remember.
No, I don't know.
Ken Stott is in it. He's one of the
I know.
detectives.
I think it was one of the scenes where they're watching
Detectives.
TV, and I thought the guy on TV was Peter Davison.
Well, maybe it was. I don't know.
Maybe. Well, I don't know. I don't fucking give a shit. I suck.
Shallow Grave. It does
Yes.
have 2 doctors. Who and Sleep.
Uh-huh.
Do you want to do the NBA Jam sound again?
It's good.
No, maybe not. Maybe just once.
We'll see.
Okay. This movie came out in 1994 at Cannes. Was released in Britain in 1995 and in America. Was like rapturously received in Britain.
Yeah.
I feel like the American response was like, you know, interesting, right? Like was kind of like,
Sure.
huh. Like Ebert gave it 2 out of 4.
I mean,
And Maslin was like, at the times, was kind of like, a little sour for my tastes. You know, like a little misanthropic.
it was pretty parallel to the Tarantino thing, right? Like this was sort of Reservoir Dogs-y.
Yes, that is a good call. Yes.
Yeah.
Even though this movie is obviously a lot less like genre-y than Reservoir
Yeah.
Dogs, it is the same kind of thing of like, right, here's Danny with a little money.
Yeah.
Then Trainspotting's like, here's Danny with some more money.
Yeah.
And more of a sort of like let him off the leash vibe.
Right.
And then, you know, we go from there.
Right. And Trainspotting and Pulp Fiction are both like, this thing is fully crystallized now and people are going to be ripping this off for the next decade.
And it's like so of the culture, so of the
Right.
moment.
But,
Yes.
but I rewatched Reservoir Dogs this week, and I was
Why?
reading. I don't know why.
It's not a bad thing to do.
I
It's
know.
just-
You know why? Because the Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction steelbooks came out, and I hadn't watched either one in a little while, and I watched both again. I just felt like it.
Yeah.
I just felt like it can get off my fucking back.
You know what's good?
What?
Reservoir Dogs.
Reservoir Dogs is good, but it's funny. There are a lot of reviews of Reservoir Dogs at the time that are similar to that. But even that are sort of like 2 stars, like, I don't know, it's a lot of flash, it's a lot of substance, it's a lot of style, you know?
It's not a lot of substance.
Or sorry, yes, it's a lot of, yes.
Yeah, right. And it's like they didn't know who this was.
It
at
feels
this
like
point.
a posture, right.
Feels right. It feels like it's trying a little hard.
Yeah.
And it's also both of those movies are so cynical or
Yes.
dark or
Yes.
whatever that you kind of exit with like Jesus, you know,
And
like all right, they're
those
all
sort
dead.
of middling reviews from the Elder Statesman of film criticism for both of these movies, for Shallow Grave and for Reservoir Dogs, you can tell that they're like, fuck, is this the beginning of a new trend?
Right. Someone like I'm going to see where JJ pulled, but someone like Barry Norman probably was like, oh, I don't know. Whereas like Empire Magazine, which was like the
Right.
cool British magazine of the night,
Yeah.
is like, here we are, baby. This is the best British film in years. Like
Right.
this is it.
But
We're cool.
The middling ones are almost taking this defensive position of, I don't want this to be the next 10 years of film. And by the time the second movies come out, Trainspotting and Pulp Fiction, everyone's basically surrendered and gone like,
fine.
this is a
yes.
thing now.
I mean, the winner, I was looking, so the best British film category.
Sure.
That's a category at the BAFTAs.
Mhm.
You know, it goes on to this day. It's become kind of embarrassing. And it got revived in the 90s. It had actually been a category in the 60s and then they forgot about it in the 90s. In 92, The Crying Game won. Now, that's an Irish film. But
Sure.
I guess it's sort of British-Irish. 93 Shadowlands won. So that's a very old fad. It's Richard Attenborough movie about C.S. Lewis.
And it's Winger and Hopkins,
and
right?
And the other nominees are Tom and Viv, which is similarly, and then Naked, which is the Mike Leigh movie, which is that's more modern and aggressive. I mean, it's an incredible movie. Yeah, and a Ken Loach movie, or truly a Ken Loach movie. I don't even know. Raining Stones.
Okay.
But in '94, Shallow Grave wins that prize.
Okay.
So it's like a year after Shadowlands. Yeah. BAFTA's like, best British film, Shallow Grave.
Wow.
A little bit of a like, all right, we'll give it to the cool movie. So, just to give you a sense of like British cinema in the 90s. Ben, you know what's not fair?
What, David?
Well, it's the fact that Netflix hides thousands of shows and movies from you based on your location and then has the nerve to increase their prices on you.
Come on, Netflix.
That's right. They've just raised their prices once again, and you could cancel your subscription in protest or just be smart about it. Make sure you're getting your full money's worth by using ExpressVPN like I do. Ben, I feel like you like this because this is kind of like computer witchcraft. You know what I mean?
I'm listening.
You might not know this, but what's on Netflix in your country is completely different from what's on in the UK or Japan. And using ExpressVPN, you can control which country Netflix thinks you're in. So they have over 90 countries to choose from. Every time we run out of stuff to watch, which happens all the time, I just switch to another country to unlock new shows.
Or you make it like it's like a spell.
That's what I'm saying. It kind of is. It's like an enchantment. You're like fooling Netflix or whatever else, whatever other. I use BBC iPlayer, things like that to watch stuff in the UK. It's easy for Taskmaster, which is a British show that I love. You can use it on any streaming services. ExpressVPN is also super fast and works on your phone, your laptop, even your smart TVs. You can watch your shows on the big screen with zero buffering. Okay?
Okay.
So stop paying full price for streaming services and only getting access to a fraction of their content. Get your money's worth at expressvpn.com/check. Don't forget to use my link so you can get those 3 extra months of ExpressVPN free. That's expressvpn.com/check, expressvpn.com/check.
And you too can be a witch hacker.
Exactly.
Can we crack open the dossier and get into Boyle?
Yeah. Let's talk about Danny Boyle.
Outside of him coming from theater, I don't know much about his origins.
Danny Boyle : origins?
Yeah.
Danny Boyle, he has a twin sister. I don't know if you knew that. Maria Boyle.
No.
Born October 20th, 1956.
Happy birthday.
To him?
Yeah, in advance. I want to get out of the way.
Okay, he's a Libra, of course.
Mm-hmm.
He's from Manchester. He's from a little town called Radcliffe, which is north of Manchester.
Okay.
But his mother is Irish.
Oh, Danny Boyle.
Exactly. He sounds Irish. So the name sounds Irish.
Yes.
His mother had emigrated to England from Ireland in the 50s. She was a hairdresser. She met his father at a dance.
Oh.
In 1952. They married in 1954. Danny is born in 1956. And he was brought up at a farm. His dad worked at a farm. Basically like a working class Catholic boy in Northern England. He passed the 11 plus, which is this like, I think, have I talked about the 11 plus?
I don't think so.
Back in the day when you were 11 in Britain, you took a test, like a standardized test. And if you passed it, you got to go to the good school, the grammar school. And if you failed it, you got to go to the like local sort of vocational school.
Okay.
And it was one of those things that was undeniably like did vault a lot of people out of the working class. But it was also like you took one fucking test when you were 11. It determined where you like fell your whole fucking life.
Yeah.
My dad was working class Londoner. He passed the 11 plus and one of his brothers did. And his other brother and sister failed the 11 plus. And literally like, you just saw it in their entire lives. Like 2 of them entered the middle class, 2 of them did not. Like when I was a kid, like it was crazy. They eventually got rid of the 11 plus. It was it's too crazy.
That feels very in line with the whole.
It was very like post-war, like we shall help,
Right.
Take this test, young boy. Oh, you failed. Carpentry for you, like or whatever. You're just sort of that weird kind of.
But like the whole British class obsession, where they're like, okay, we understand. This is a prison. We're going to fix it.
It's bad.
We offer you one opportunity to raise your station at 11 and then door closed.
Like, yes.
You have one
And
chance.
my dad would tell me about like when he passed the 11 plus and started going to the grammar school, like his friends who didn't were like, well, we won't talk to you anymore.
Yeah.
You know, it was like right then it was like, oh, well, you're going to the fancy school now. We don't want to deal with you.
Wow. Jeez.
Anyway,
Anyway.
my dad didn't even go to college. He, you know, kind of fucked him up. But anyway, but he figured it out. You know, shout out to my dad. He didn't like school, says Danny Boyle,
Mm-hmm.
but he pushed himself very hard.
Okay.
He was competitive with his sister.
Okay.
You
What
know?
does his sister do now? Do we know? Maria Boyle? Maria Boyle.
I don't know.
Okay.
I think his sister's like a teacher, maybe. I just remember when I was at the premiere of Yesterday.
Humble brag.
I know. And he came out and introduced it and he was like, this movie is like my salute to teachers. And then I watched the movie and I was like, all right.
Do you hate
Great
your
salute.
sister?
But maybe, I think he may have said like, my sister's a teacher. I love English
Okay.
school teacher. Anyway, whatever. But so he just like, you know, he's ooh, I love this. Thank you, JJ, for putting this in. His dad was like what you would consider back in the day, a hardcore, like working class labor voter, Tony Benn type.
Okay.
Tony Benn is sort of like a famous politician on the left of labor who I love personally as well. But, you know, so he passes his 11 plus, he
Mhm.
goes to a good school, you know, tough teachers. He said he had an English teacher who changed his life, Mr. Unsworth,
Okay.
who was like teaching him Jane Austen and Shakespeare and stuff like when he's a teenager and like getting him into it. And he thinks that's like what gets him into theater, gets him
Mhm.
into all that stuff, right? Love that stuff, right?
He was at one point in his, I don't know if I'm jumping ahead here,
You're about to say it.
on track to become a priest.
His mother wanted him to enter the priesthood. It sounds like his mom really loved Jesus.
Many
Heard
do.
of that guy?
Many do. I found.
And Boyle said when he was 14 years old, a priest
Yes.
was like, you don't want to do this. Like a priest was the one
Yeah.
who was like, you don't want to go to seminary school.
Right. There was a
And-
line I saw from him where he was like, I don't know if he was trying to save me from the church or save the church from me.
Yes, that's the
Which
line.
is
The priest.
very
type thing.
funny.
Yes, it's very,
Right.
very funny. It is right. I mean, I don't know what young Danny Boyle was like. Maybe the priest was just like, you're not going to have the energy for this. Or maybe the priest was like, this sucks. I
Right.
don't
It was
wanna
either a
do
great
this.
act of kindness
or like
ex-
judgmental.
exclusionary. Yes.
But
he
instead he
said-
starts doing theater.
Right.
That's his new like world.
I did read a quote from him where he said, like, I do find it fascinating how many filmmakers thought they were going to become priests, that were on that track. And the ones he cited were M. Night Shyamalan, Martin Scorsese, and John Woo.
Mhm.
And he's like, I do think there's something to the relationship between those types of positions where you want everyone to pay attention to you as you steer a story around.
Yeah. No, it's
And tell people what to think and how to think.
And I think,
yeah.
especially for like the Scorsese types, it's like he's like, I don't want to like run around and play sports or like be a bad kid.
Right.
Like I'm not in those scenes, so I'll just like go here where I get to like sit down and read books
and lead
and
conversation.
learn stories and
and
do all
deeply
this
engage
stuff.
in
Yeah,
stories.
yeah,
That's the
yeah.
other thing, to like study stories like that. Yeah.
When he was in sixth form, which you would consider like junior year of high school.
Okay.
He directed a play about a Polish cardinal. My guess is, you know, that was a sort of Catholic-y, school-y kind of thing. Right?
Okay.
I don't
Sure.
know. you
Sure.
know.
Yeah.
In 1973,
Uh-huh.
he sees A Clockwork Orange. It's as what he says, the boutique porn cinema in Bolton, which is another town outside of Manchester. Right before it gets banned, right before
Oh,
Kubrick is
sure,
like, fuck
sure.
it, get it
Yeah.
out of theaters if you don't like it. And he says it was an overwhelming experience. It stimulates your senses so much. It's the point of cinema to me to be visceral rather than intellectual or reflective. The reflection can come later. All of this, obviously, speaking to Danny Boyle's filmmaking style, right?
Yes. Yes.
I
I saw Apocalypse Now. He also cited as a
Apocalypse
big
Now.
turn-on moment for him. Yeah.
Yeah, he says the poster just got him.
Yeah.
He just saw a poster that said Apocalypse Now, and he was like, "Oh shit!" But that movie blew him away. He still calls that the ultimate action movie.
Mhm.
It's all movement. When the movement stops, you get extraordinary crisis. It's my absolute favorite film of all time ever. It's
Wow.
mad. It's flawed. It's total filmmaking on a gargantuan
Mm-hmm.
scale. Some other early movies for him: Battle of the Bulge, which is a classic old war movie. Sound of Music when
Sure.
he was a little kid. He came to the DG. Here's a DGA story he tells. I guess he was talking to GGA Quarterly, my favorite magazine. He says, I came to the Guild for a Q&A after Shallow Grave. It was my first film. It had gone well. And an older guy in the audience comes up to me afterwards and says, hey, good job, young man. And I said, oh, thanks very much. And someone leans over and is like, this is Robert Wise.
Wow.
That's cool.
Very cool.
Never got to meet him again, he said, but it was so great to have that. Anyway, goes to Bangor University.
Hell yeah.
You just like bangers?
Yep.
And did he go to MASH for postgrad?
No, he went to After MASH.
Okay, thank you.
Stupid joke.
Alley-oop.
Was it? It's like we both alley-ooped and then we just collided. And the ball's over there. Bangor University, which is in Wales. He says he's a very glammy boy at that point. He loves David Bowie. He loves Roxy Music. Starts doing more drama. You know, he's a cool, punky 70s British boy who does theater. Did a dissertation on Samuel Beckett. Directed a bunch of plays and then starts working at the Joint Stock Theater Company. Meets Alison Ritchie, who I feel like I know who that is. Isn't that like an author or something? I don't know. Anyway, is kind of interested in doing movies, but is, you know, plays. Through the 80s, I think that's what he's doing. He directed a Carol Churchill play, She Rules. If anyone, do you guys like Carol Churchill? No?
I'm not familiar with her work.
I feel like you have seen some Carol Churchill.
Really?
Didn't you? Have you never seen A Number? That was done.
Oh, I have.
It's Carol.
Okay.
Crazy old Carol.
Then yes.
Top
fan of her work.
Girls is her most famous. You know,
Okay.
very like into the like overlapping dialogue.
Yeah,
And kind
yeah.
of like intense. Anyway, main theater taught him, he says, love of actors. You can't do theater unless you love actors on some level, he says. He says some directors are ghastly or unpleasant to them, obviously, but you got to love the acting, the craft of acting, and he thinks that was hugely helpful for him as a film director.
He has always struck me as a unusually kind man.
He seems like a real little sweetheart.
Right?
And I've certainly never heard any story about him that was like remotely negative.
No. In fact, one of the
You don't
things...
really hear gossip about
No.
Danny Boyle.
No. One of the things I've heard about him, the most prepared director.
That makes sense.
The most
Sure.
prepared, organized.
Again, the theater thing feels like
well
is a
run.
part of it, right?
But there's a certain, like, you know, there's a manic quality to his films that I think you hear of other filmmakers achieving through, like, a sort of planned chaos.
Right.
Right?
We'll just day by day, we'll figure this out. Right.
Right.
Other people can do the planning shit.
Yeah. And he just seems like an incredibly enthusiastic, kind, thoughtful person.
Starts making TV films for the BBC.
Okay.
Did some Inspector Morse's.
Whoa.
We love him.
Yes.
He produced Alan Clark's famous 1989 film Elephant, which I'm sure you've heard of because
Yeah.
obviously Gus Van Sant.
An excellent movie.
Gus Van Sant was inspired by it for his movie
Yeah,
Elephant.
I'll give a
Great
hot
film.
tip. I was stocking up on the couple of boils I needed on like iTunes.
Mhm.
Weirdly, I'm sure we'll talk about this as we go.
Weird
forward.
that there's a lot of stuff that's not available in certain
Boyle is
places.
oddly poorly represented in physical media. Several of his films have never been released on Blu-ray, period.
Yep.
And only 2 of his movies are in 4K. So yeah, iTunes and other rental places, the like. But anyway, I was looking up Danny Boyle on iTunes, and they sell the original Elephant for $2,
Hey,
which is 40 minutes long.
Yep.
It's a pretty lengthy short.
it's really cool.
But for anyone who, it's worth seeing, period. But if you are a fan of Gus Van Sant's Elephant,
it's crucial.
it's crucial. I highly recommend it. Anyway,
Um,
that's a hot tip. I just bought it the other day while buying Life Less Ordinary.
Here is Danny Boyle talking about Alan Clark, the director of that film.
Mm-hmm.
He was so easy and equitable with everyone. It was a wonderful combination, terrifying concentration and obsession with an idea, but very garrulous. He was obsessed with the rushes, which is the dailies.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
I would try and get him to go out for a meal, and he'd say, "No, I'm eating in my room watching rushes." And I learned that from him. Watch the rushes. Watch the rushes.
Oh.
Watch the rushes. Watch what you've done. It's boring, but you learn all the time from it. It's a huge thing for me. Okay,
Okay.
that's Danny Boyle. Now, Mr. John Hodge,
Okay.
not Hodgman.
Nope.
He's a doctor, a real doctor
Mm.
of medicine. He studied at the University of Edinburgh.
So this movie has 3 doctors.
That's true. And he had long aspired to write a screenplay. He loved movies since he was a teenager. And he thinks up the premise of Shallow Grave, which he says wasn't startlingly original, but it was confined in terms of location. I thought it might be viable. And I just started writing, and I met Andrew McDonald, who's a friend of my sister's, who was working as a location manager for Taggart, which is a TV show.
Okay.
And he wanted to be a producer. He gets the script. It is really one of those things where you're like, it's crazy that this happened.
Yeah.
That these two guys were just like, I don't know. Like, one guy writes a script and he's like, is this good? And another guy who like has the lowest level job in TV is like, I like it. Let's see if we can get a little money.
It's a little like Mad Max, though.
Yes. Well, Mad Max is right. Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
Similarly, like a doctor meeting someone in film and being like, what if we just made this?
It is also a testimony, as is Mad Max, to other countries having more robust government filming of
this
the
is
arts.
the biggest thing.
Because it gets into the hands of Film 4, which is, an off-branch of Channel 4, which is a government-funded television channel.
Yeah.
And they like the script, and they're like, here's a little bit of money, and here's Danny Boyle, who's like a TV director, who, who is good.
Really,
and that's it.
It really helps the culture of a country when your government does not almost have open contempt for the arts.
Yeah. And so I think they met with a bunch of directors, according to Andrew McDonald, and he said most of the directors who met them would be like, the characters are very unsympathetic. Can we smooth that out a little bit? And Danny Boyle was the one who was like, don't want to do that. And they were like, great, you're hired. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The most important thing to Boyle is that he really wanted the characters to be rich.
Okay.
Because he was, and here's the quote, if they were poor, then you'd have more of an excuse for their obnoxious behavior. And I said, no. The whole point is that these people don't need the money. They've got good jobs. They have a nice, secure profession. They have this beautiful flat, but they're bored with each other. And they need this new ingredient, the new roommate. And so he's just kind of like, like the satire. If it's just about like people at the end of their ropes who are desperate for the money, then it's a different kind of movie. Like it's not the movie that it is at all.
Yeah, it was very surprising to me watching the film when they don't make that part of the setup. When you go like, wait, did they skip the part where they explain why they need the money? And
then
you're
getting
like, oh no,
the past due bill from the electric company or whatever.
Right,
yeah.
they don't. No, they actually don't.
No, they're little yuppies. This is a yuppie satire.
She's like a doctor. He was an accountant. And
Ewan McGregor's a journalist. Like they all have
they
jobs.
have like, yeah.
Yeah.
So another thing, he loved the Coen brothers, and he did love Blood Simple.
Yes.
The Grifters is another one.
Oh, sure.
And he mentions those movies during the interview, and they're like, yep, you understand the vibe we want.
Frears is kind of an interesting outlier. We talk about the state of British film at the point where Boyle is entering.
I would say Stephen Frears at this moment in the early 90s is a very exciting filmmaker.
Yeah. And he's not doing the stodgy, prestige, stiff upper lip
He
thing.
made movies about real life.
Yeah.
Like The Hit and My Beautiful Laundrette and Sammy and Rosie Get Laid and all that. But then he could also give you Dangerous Liaisons.
Exactly.
He could give you, I mean, The Grifters is a different thing, but that is a period movie. It's a crime movie. It's pulpy. It's intense. But he could jump around. I mean, he's
similarly, like
such an
a
interesting
genre
career.
hermit crab. Because, he
is a real hermit crab. Have you seen that guy too?
Yes.
He looks like a hermit crab.
Yes.
I say that with all due
some
respect.
Jack Black interview where it's one of those fucking timeline of my career videos where he's talking about working on High Fidelity, and he says that he calls Stephen Frears the Warlock.
Cool.
He's got these great bushy eyebrows.
He does.
But like, if you go like on one end of British film at this point in time, you have like the real sort of like Ken Loach, Mike Leigh, working class humanist, realist, and then you have this sort of Merchant Ivory, the Richard Attenborough, whatever. Frears is someone who's maybe more of a career model for what Boyle could want to do, and then Boyle's adding a new sort of energy and countercultural sort of bent to it.
John Hodge continues practicing medicine.
Okay.
Because he's like not sure if this is going to work out.
Mhm.
Just an interesting thing. Here's a Boyle story about apparently during Scottish medicine, the doctors and nurses would have acronyms that they would use with each other. It's just a funny story to communicate with each other without the patient understanding. So,
that's okay.
FLK, funny looking kid.
Fun.
But the most extreme one, and this is God's honest truth, Danny Boyle says, is TF Bundy, which stands for totally fucked but unfortunately not dead yet.
Wow.
Anyway, Shallow Grave.
Mhm.
A very interesting thing. No guns in this movie.
Yes.
Boyle said, we didn't want to use guns. There's something wholly false about people with guns in Britain because there are very few guns around. We wanted it to feel realistic in that way.
I saw a quote from him where he said, even more specifically, we didn't want to Americanize the story, which America found dead in a shallow grave.
Put him there.
Yep.
The thing with his pre-production process, like you were saying, he's very prepared.
Mhm.
He gets a big book. He puts photographs in them. He shows it to actors and talks to them about the photos and stuff like that. He doesn't storyboard though.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting. Pre-preparation. He
Budget
says,
was like £1 million, and they said most of it was spent on the apartment set.
yes. They lived in the flat for 10 days, rehearsing, watching movies.
The 3 actors in Boyle.
Yes. They watched The Grifters. They watched Goodfellas. They watched something called The Day I Believe. I don't know what that is.
The quote I saw, I don't remember if some Eccleston or Fox, was the main thing Boyle wanted us to all live together so we could learn about each other. And the main thing we learned about each other after 10 days was that we didn't like each other very much.
1 billion pounds, as you said. Not 1 billion, 1 million.
Yeah.
1 billion would be a bit of an inflated budget for this film.
The Dr. Evil over here.
That would be it'd be kind of like,
Quick
did
bump
someone
up from
walk
M to
away
B.
with some money
Yeah.
here?
That flat is nice.
It's nice.
It's nice.
Fucking nice.
Yeah, and these days it might go for $1 billion.
It meant that,
Housing market as it is.
it meant they could cast
Especially
who they
London.
wanted.
Uh-huh.
They wanted the female character to be an outsider, so they cast not Scottish.
Sure.
They cast Carrie Fox.
From New
Obviously,
Zealand.
we all know from New Zealand. She's
Angel
in
at
An
My
Angel at My Table.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Ewan McGregor had been in a Dennis Potter, I think, TV movie called
Okay.
Lipstick on Your Collar.
Uh-huh.
Where he's young and pretty. I mean, look at him.
Yeah, it kind of sucks how hot he is in this movie.
Does it? Does it suck?
Kind of sucks. Carrie
He has
Fox,
charms coming out of his eardrums, is what Boyle says.
it
about him.
is absurd how much of a star he is in this.
Ewan?
Yeah.
The hair alone. You're just like, get this guy whatever he wants.
Yeah.
Eccleston had been in this movie called Let Him Have It, which is this very good British movie about a person who is hanged.
Okay.
Like, even though he essentially for yelling "Let him have it" during the commission of a crime, and he was probably like mentally challenged in some sort of way, and it was crazy that the British government executed him. Anyway, like a sort of social realist film where Eccleston gives this very like committed performance.
Eccleston is also a Mancunian.
Yes, he is from Manchester, so he's not Scottish either. So Ewan's the only Scot here. Eccleston, I think he's from Salford, which is another suburb of Manchester.
But Carrie Fox is far and away the most established of the 3 because she's been in a proper
I would say so, right?
movie.
Yeah.
And then the other 2 guys are like theater and have done TV films, basically, right?
Essentially, like the only major movie Eccleston has done is Let Him Have It, and that's like a small English film.
Sure.
And he'd done some TV.
Mhm.
He's in Cracker. Do you know Cracker?
Robbie Coltrane, correct?
Yeah. He's one of the guys in Cracker.
Okay.
Ewan is this, young pretty guy. He
Yeah.
was in that surfing movie.
What's the surfing?
Let me look it up. He was in the Scottish Blue Crush.
Okay.
Oh, right. It was called Blue Juice.
Wow.
And Catherine Zeta-Jones is in it. But even that, I think, comes out
Sure.
after Shallow Grave. He's nobody.
But these 2 guys are basically just sort of like tapped as like, these are probably future leading men.
And
right?
as you say,
ready
Fox
for the grabbing. Yeah.
Fox is the closest thing to. They didn't test her.
Yeah.
Like they tested
Sure.
the guys. They didn't need to test her because she'd been an Angel at My Table.
Yeah.
And Robert Carlyle was the original choice for McGregor's part.
Yes.
I think he didn't make sense
He would have been too severe for this, I think.
and he's not a yuppie. Like
No.
he can't do yuppie the way that Ewan put that sweater on him. His hair's all feathery.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, that's who this guy. I get who this guy is.
It's fascinating because Eccleston has such an extreme face, right?
Just what a crazy guy.
Right. And
No wonder he's played a million villains
Yes.
in Hollywood. Yeah.
yes, and even something like
Crazy looking
when
guy.
he played the Doctor, it was sort of pointedly casting against type and playing with his menacing energy.
Yeah.
Right? And then having him play this intellectual, benevolent,
Obviously, what Ewan McGregor's major connection at this point is to the movie industry.
His uncle is
Uncle.
Wedge Antilles?
Yes, his uncle is Dennis Lawson,
Right.
who is Wedge in Star Wars, but is also in he's in Local Hero. He's in a ton of
Ultimate
British
Nepo
movies and
baby.
TV.
Ultimate Nepo
Oh yeah,
baby.
Ewan. Oh yeah, embarrassing.
Nepo nephew, let's say.
We
That's my new pitch to Vulture. The Nepo nephews.
yes, drag them. Ewan dropped out of school at 16.
What I was going to say just before we move on.
Mhm.
Eccleston, as opposed to Carlisle, let's say, and I know they were up for different roles, right? Eccleston's
Yes.
face is so extreme, and yet you are surprised at the beginning of this movie how well they are able to style him to sort of
Look normal.
soften him.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could ever do that to Carlisle.
Not in the way this movie needs,
No.
in my opinion. Although I love Robert Carlyle.
Yes.
Keith Allen,
Mhm.
who plays the roommate,
Mhm.
and obviously he is also in Trainspotting,
As a drug dealer. Perhaps the same drug dealer.
possibly the same character. At this point, is known. He's quite well known in Britain,
Uh-huh.
as sort of like a comedy guy,
Sure.
mostly. And so I think that's part of the casting with him is when he shows up, you definitely are not like this guy will be dead in 10 minutes.
Right. He's
It's
like the
supposed to be
biggest
surprising. Yeah.
name in the movie, or at least the most well-known face.
And you're like, am I going to see this guy's soft penis anytime soon?
Yeah.
And you are.
Well, inshore.
Uh, Keith Allen, as I also mentioned in the next episode, Lily Allen's dad, also Alfie Allen's dad.
Yeah.
Speaking of Nepo babies,
Crappy dad, though.
apparently Keith Allen loved being naked in front of the whole crew. Most
Okay.
actors want as few crew around as possible and take their clothes off at the last possible second. Keith was naked in the breaks, sitting around smoking.
He's a guy who's got a tricky reputation, right?
I think so.
People were angry at Lily Allen for pushing back on the Nepo baby thing, and it's like, not that we need to fucking
don't.
litigate this, but it's like a well-known fact that he had multiple children with multiple women and did not raise any of them.
Yeah, he's definitely right. Yes, he has 6 kids by 4 women, and he's one of those guys in Britain who's always getting in trouble.
Yeah, and most of his kids
He's a tabloid
have
guy,
met him twice.
Well, no, look. What's important is that you should put out a statement in response to the Nepo baby article if you are a Nepo baby. That's the thing. That's the best way to deal with it. That'll
It is-
diffuse the situation.
Yes.
And no one is going to get upset at you.
Yes. No, that's always the best.
Just a wide statement.
Everyone should comment on everything all the time.
My thing with Jamie Lee Curtis, and then we can stop talking about this, is I feel like she's just kind of I don't care. I'm Jamie Lee Curtis. I can throw myself in front of this.
Yeah.
I'm not like some of these guys where it's like, why are you famous? She's like, look, I'm Jamie Lee Curtis. Even if people get mad at me for a year, I'm still Jamie.
Yeah,
I'm
the
still
other thing
in
is that Jamie Lee
Halloween.
Curtis in interviews for years, we need to stop talking about this,
Yes, stop.
has always said it was down to me and another girl, and I'm absolutely sure I got the part because
Right.
I was the daughter of the one from Psycho. I have never denied for a second that gave me an advantage.
So she put out a statement.
No one should ever talk about anything. Everyone should get off of social media.
Why are you doing a podcast right now?
It's over. Last episode.
John Hodge is in the movie briefly.
Mhm.
He likes to use his screenwriters in movies.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
a little joke of his.
Yes.
Although he says he could never persuade Alex Garland to do it, who he did many movies with,
Yeah.
because Alex Garland is too shy.
Mm.
Film shot in Glasgow, set in Edinburgh, much like the Trainspotting, which did the
Yep,
same thing.
Yep.
They got a little bit of money because they shot in Glasgow. Almost everything's set in the apartment. They use, like you said, that's their big thing. They spent 10 days doing exteriors, and they made a blood pact that once they were done with that, they wouldn't go back. And then after that, they're in the studio.
We'll talk about this in the next episode
Yeah.
too.
Yes, you're right. Yeah,
Yeah.
the Trainspotting has a good blood pact.
Yeah.
And Eccleston, got freaked out by the mortuary scene. He didn't want to get
Yes.
pushed into the locker.
We're talking the final bit,
Yeah.
right? The thing I read was
I
that
would also not like that.
yes. The thing I read was that there's another open whatever the fuck you call it, chamber above him, right? When they open the door, it's like
Yeah,
two
yeah, yeah.
stacked on top of each
Right.
other. That they had a crew guy,
Go in there with him.
at the top bunk essentially.
Yeah.
to like assure him so that when they closed the door, he could like recite to him, like, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. They're going to open the door. We're not going to be stuck in here.
They ran out of money. The last day of filming is the scene where the policeman comes to interview them.
Okay.
And they had to sell most of the set, like the furniture,
Yeah.
to get enough money to buy enough celluloid to film that scene.
That's wild.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
They asked for like a little bit more money and Channel 4 was like, no. So they were like, I guess we're selling this furniture.
Wow.
But the apartment is such a cool set.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
The flat,
Yes.
I should say.
So inspired by Edward Hopper paintings?
Yeah. And Caravaggio, apparently. And, I think the set is like the secret star of this movie.
Yeah.
Like when Eccleston's going up to the attic, you get where he's going. You know what I mean? Just like the geography of the set's really clever.
Ben, you've never seen Margaret, right?
I've
One of
not.
my favorite movies. One of the things I love about it is you can tell a movie that was actually shot in real New York apartments because every angle is like an angle of necessity of like, oh, this thing is built like this and there's only one corner and the shots are this tight or whatever.
Yeah.
And you immediately feel the difference between that and any movie or show you've seen that's set in New York, but they built an apartment.
Totally.
And it's like you have to build these weird dimensions that end up on screen looking like a pretty nice apartment, but allow you the flexibility to actually be able to put the camera in different places.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, go on.
Yeah. No, I say let's talk about the plot, right?
Okay,
Yeah. I mean,
Opening of the film is
Christopher Eccleston delivering a monologue to the camera. Quite clever of this movie.
Yes.
It's a pretty good trick.
Camera spinning.
Because he's dead.
Yes.
We don't know that.
No.
Spoilers for viewers.
You think he's in bad shape? He looks pallid.
But that's true. But still, I feel like the first time I watched this movie, I definitely was, fooled.
Oh, yes. No, did not see it coming. Yes.
And, he's delivering this little monologue about friendship, your friends.
Choose life.
Right. And the first chunk of this movie is him and his flatmates. He's David. His flatmates are Alex, that's Ewan.
Yeah.
And Juliet, that's Carrie Fox.
I related a lot to Ewan McGregor in this movie, by the way.
Why?
Because he keeps saying, David.
David. And they need a new
David?
flatmate. Although, like,
Do they?
I don't know. I guess they have a spare room, right? In their giant apartment.
Yeah.
They all seem to be doing fine.
They all seem to be doing fine.
Because like Ewan is a journalist,
Mhm.
Juliet's a doctor,
Mhm.
and David's like an accountant or whatever.
Mhm.
Like, why do they even live together? These guys will probably afford it is a nice apartment.
Yeah.
So I guess you want to keep it going.
It's one of these things where I'm like, how do they even know each other?
They probably went to university together
Sure.
or something. Like that would be the vibe, I would assume.
Yeah.
Right? Like they're like uni friends.
They seem to have a nice like living dynamic together.
They're
they
like
sit down to have dinner.
Yeah.
They drink wine together. They
They're little
cook for
sweeties.
each other. And I
Mhm.
mean, I think it's like
It's just that they're
they
little
have a
bitches
good
to everyone else.
relationship.
Yeah.
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 And they're having so much fun interviewing all the flatmates.
Being mean.
Yeah, but I feel like it's also that they are like, we are cool,
Yes.
British, Scottish, intellectuals. This is the 90s. We are not fuddy-duddies. And a
Right.
lot of the people they're interviewing, they see as like fuddy.
The guy with the red hair is a real wanker.
Yeah, where they're just like, we're cooler than this guy. We can like pick him apart. Like that's
it's
like the
cool
glee
kids
they
table
have.
vibes.
Yeah,
You can't bring
100%.
David.
Yes.
David. I'm sure you've experienced this as well, where like they were the fucking New York fucks, and you go to like some house party at some apartment, some loft in Brooklyn in like 2008, and you'd be like, was there a central casting call for roommates? Like there's an aesthetic, there's a vibe to this apartment that feels like it is extended to who is allowed to live
A
here.
little bit. Yes. Yeah.
I just immediately recognize these types of people and their whole thing.
Have you ever
I mean, it continues. I
Ben,
mean,
have
it's
you
just
done it-
it's evolved as far as the Brooklyn roommate goes. Where
Yeah.
it's like that meme where it's like someone like named Grass can't wash the dishes because it's like they're unable to. Come on, you don't know what I'm talking about.
I don't know this meme.
Don't
It
know
sounds
this
funny
meme,
when
but
you
it
describe
is
sounds
funny.
funny and
It sounds-
drag them. Have you ever done the thing, Griffin? Because I did this when I moved
Sure.
to New York, where you're like, looking at listings on Craigslist and
Mhm.
applying to be a roommate. Like
Okay.
I had no money to my name and I had like barely any credit, so I couldn't like get my own apartment.
Uh-huh.
So instead, I was like visiting apartments that need, it was exactly this, that needed
Yeah.
a roommate. And then you're doing the kind of thing of like, they're showing you around, obviously, but also you're like, am I impressing them? Like with like,
Yeah.
am I roommate material? You never did this, I feel like.
No, I guess I did. I only ever lived with friends.
Right. Whereas I lived with strangers,
Yeah.
my first 2 apartments.
I had the same roommate for like 9 years, basically.
Okay. Well, we love
Sophie Fader.
Yes.
And then I had 2 other 1-year situations, but both of them were with
You knew the people.
childhood
Right.
friends. I do think I looked at places like that, but
There
yeah.
was just the stress of like, oh, I'm not cool enough.
I think that's why I then pivoted to
Like I remember I saw this one apartment on Avenue B,
yeah.
and it was this girl, and it was clearly one of those things where she was like, "This is my bedroom. That's your bedroom. We would need to walk through your bedroom to go to the bathroom."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Okay," because clearly the bedroom was probably supposed to be a living room or whatever.
Yeah.
And then she was like, "And we like to party a lot," and I was like, "All right." Cool, but I was just immediately I was like, they're not gonna pick David Sims. Like,
Yes.
I don't think David Sims is gonna be the one they want to walk through his room to get to the bathroom.
No.
You just wanted to look cool, and instead sometimes you meet a real, Juliet, Alex, and David.
Yeah, there's also something to the fact that they're like 3 different types.
Yes, go on.
How do I even put this?
I mean, David and Alex are definitely different types.
Yes.
Juliet's the girl, but she's kind of also the smartest one, and
Right.
like the most whatever. She's sort of the boss.
The fact that they have
David's more serious and Alex is more silly.
yeah,
Eccleston is more serious.
they each have their own vibe. When you cut to that shot of the 3 of them in the chairs, their sort of side of the interview,
Mm-hmm.
it does almost feel like they're cartoon characters or something, where
Yeah,
they're
no, I
like
know what you
3
mean.
designed,
Yeah. Hugo, Keith Allen,
Uh-huh.
shows up,
Sure.
and he's like, "Hello." And I feel like immediately that Ewan's whole thing is he's like, "Well, this guy's cooler and scarier than me. I wanted to be my roommate."
Right.
Like he's like, "This guy's got me beat."
He's the one guy who alphas them.
Yeah.
And I think they like that the idea of him living with them seems to give them more edge.
Right. It's like, let's pick this. This is a swerve for us.
Right.
Not like the sort of busybody who goes to work every day.
Yes.
This mysterious weirdo
He's got a
who
great
likes to be
look.
dick out on set in between takes.
Oh boy.
What's
He's
up?
got a great look.
He does have a good look.
He's got this like sort of like car coat, I think is what they call it.
Uh-huh.
Like that mid-length kind of like leather jacket. He looks like a tough, cool guy that I would want to have a pint with.
Well,
down at the pub.
And when they're like, "Hey, buddy, you want to play Scrabble?" Creak. Oh, dead from drugs.
Dead from the
Yeah.
drugs.
Money on bed.
Yes.
Now we've covered a simple plan.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else we've covered like this?
Great question.
What would you do? Because Ben's response to simple plan, plane full of money, was like, pocket the money, don't get caught.
Easy.
Bingo bango.
No problem.
Ben's
Sugar in the
quote
gas
was-
tank.
If I'm in that movie, it ends with me on an island.
So shallow grave. Like here's what
Owning an island?
here's
Yeah.
what I would do. 911 ambulance, please.
Yes.
Dead man in my house.
Absolutely. Because
Mm-hmm.
here's the thing the characters in these movies never think about.
Mm.
Always more complicated.
Why would he have so much money? He definitely didn't just save it. It's
Than you
not his
expect.
pocket money.
It's never like a one and done.
So you wouldn't have the thought of like, because what they do, obviously, they do 2 things.
Yeah.
They keep the money and they chop him into pieces and bury him in a shallow grave. Now, would you be tempted to call the ambulance?
Mhm.
Hey, this guy died of a drug overdose in my house. Can you come
Yeah.
deal with that? And they'd be like, great. And there was nothing else on the bed. And I'd be like, nope, just him. And put the money in like my closet.
Right.
And then anytime I want a cheeky Nando's, just peel a tenner off. That's my nut,
Sure.
right?
Or even just take like 1,000 off the top or something
Sure.
like that.
Like do the classic like cops in a drug bust where they kind of stuff a few things in their vests, right?
Look, I think I'm enough of a worrywart
Right.
that I would be too terrified to even
You'd be
touch
sweating those bills.
the money.
Yes.
Right? Who knows when push comes to shove what I would do in that exact situation? I can say with 100% confidence, I would not chop up the body. That is a thing I would
Yeah.
never do.
Yeah.
Any
absolutely.
temptation I would have money-wise would never lead me to, well, time to cut some bones.
I would say this actually. I don't think there's any amount of money that would lead me to cut up a body like they do.
This movie makes it look so unpleasant. Now, I've never seen a movie that makes it look fun.
Right. It's not one of those things that I think would be easy.
No.
Easy breezy.
And a lot of it's maybe
Bingo, bango.
Eccleston doing a very good job playing the displeasure of it.
He plays displeasure well.
Yeah.
But it really does seem like an awful day's work.
I guess it's like she works at the hospital.
Yeah.
So she's got that, and it is pretty cool.
Yeah.
That kind of like, look, hospital has an incinerator.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yes.
Like, I'll just chuck some stuff in there. Hands and legs.
Yeah, but the some stuff is the part. You know, it's even
Yeah.
like, look, I wouldn't want to carry around a full dead body, but if the task was, if you can get this full dead body to the incinerator, we're in the clear.
But they don't do that.
No.
No.
Cut it up.
I don't think there's any circumstances under which I would cut up a body. Like if
Never.
I robbed
This is what I'm saying.
Roger or Robert Durst? What if I already forgot?
David, thank you. I was about to bring this up.
Is it Robert? Durst?
Robert Durst. Bobby.
If I Dursted someone where
Yeah.
I accidentally killed someone, I'm putting accidentally in quotes there. You know, Durst's response was like, well, I guess I'll chop up this body.
Do you remember this part of the story, Ben?
And he got off for this. He got acquitted.
He
I kind
was-
of don't.
he
I
The
was-
kind
glove
of
did
don't.
not fit.
He was already under suspicion for a murder that had happened maybe a decade earlier.
Yes.
If not two, I can't remember if this was... No, this was number two.
It's because
This
his
was
wife,
num-
his
it was
wife
the
was
wife.
the
At this
initial.
point, it was only the wife, right?
Uh-huh.
But had been a suspect
Right.
and had maybe sort of narrowly avoided, you know...
Conviction.
Getting
conviction.
caught.
Thank you.
Yeah.
His claim was, I got into a fight with my landlord who was my downstairs neighbor.
Yes.
This is when he's like living in Texas.
Yes, correct.
Right.
In the middle of the fight, he took out a gun, threatened to shoot me, and then accidentally shot himself.
Mhm.
I had nothing to do with his death. But here I am, alone in a room with a dead body, and I'm already under suspicion for a previous murder.
What am I supposed to do if not chop it and dump it in the ocean or whatever?
And they were like, why wouldn't you call 911? And he's like, well, if they find me here with a dead body, they'll think that I did it. So the less suspicious thing to do is take a bone saw,
And there's-
separate it into 10 different garbage bags.
Obviously, I believe he got off on murder. He pleaded guilty.
But
to
he was like,
some
yes, I
kind of-
absolutely did chop and dispose of the
I
body.
believe he was like
that
maybe
died by accident.
found guilty of evidence tampering, which
Yes.
was hard to disprove because
Sure.
he chopped the body up.
Uh-huh.
But I remember that was one of those things where like the forensic guy was like, that guy knew how to chop a body.
Yeah, no.
Like that wasn't like an amateur job.
No.
Like anyway, if I'm in that situation, the Durst situation,
Yeah.
911, please.
absolutely.
Dead
Yep.
man in house.
Yes.
But Ben, would you take the money?
I would skim off the top.
You'd
Yeah,
skim off
skim.
the top.
Just
For
for cheeky
sure.
Nando's. Yeah.
Definitely. Well, because like I would take like a couple of stacks.
Yeah.
What do the cops know? You know what I mean?
Nothing.
Like they could have cut that in half and
Yeah.
still called.
Yes.
That's what I felt like. I felt like the mistake was they were obviously too greedy, but like this was an opportunity to, take a good amount of that money and still get away with it.
I'm glad we're just all on the same page, which is team never chop up a body.
Never, ever would I do that. And I just want to also mention there is another movie that is in this wheelhouse, which is The Killing. And I still stand by
Sure.
that I think I could have pulled off the heist.
The thing with The Killing is that it's a lot of personalities at play there too.
Yeah.
You're dealing with a lot of guys who are like, I'm really down on my luck. I do anything for this. And you're like, well, I don't want to be associated with someone with that energy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
want someone who's like, I'm a professional. I do this all the time. And if I don't get the money, that's okay. I'm fine.
Yes.
I'm set. Not someone who's like, oh, Jesus, my wife's going to kill me if I don't get my 10 grand.
flop set sweat
Yeah,
thrillers.
exactly.
Yeah. Movies like this stress me out so much where they're like, it's easy.
It's easy.
It's
Chop
a
'em
perfect
up.
plan. It's one step, and then we're in the clear. And you're like, okay, but it's minute 15, and this
But-
movie is 100 minutes long.
Yeah, what if you actually you check the time? Oh, there's only 20 minutes in this movie.
Yeah.
And the next scene is just them being like, ha 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 ha.
The rest of the movie is just they move into a nicer apartment and host dinner parties. Nothing ever catches up to them. But Before the Devil Knows You're Dead is another one where I'm
That's a
just like,
classic one,
just
yes.
stacking bad decisions atop one another to constantly think like, if we just do this, then we'll be fine.
Yeah.
Just one more move and then we're fine. But this, I like that it's less about them trying to outrun and more about how much it breaks their brains.
What I love about it is, yes, you're cutting to these guys who are looking for the
Just
money,
start turning on each
but
other.
they're
Yeah.
just fucking other people up.
Yes.
And it's just kind of Danny Boyle's being like, that's the tsunami. It's 50 miles away.
Yeah.
But, that'll hit them eventually.
Right.
But when we're cutting to them, they don't know that that's happening. They're just bougie little fucks
Yeah.
who are like, yeah, well, we did that. We can do anything.
And they're not even spending the money well.
No.
Like they go to some New Year's like uptight like party and they're not having a good time
No.
at all, clearly.
I
And
mean,
it's like you're not even doing a good job with this, guys.
now, so here's my question. Who's fucking here?
Great question, because
There's this early scene where
the aforementioned Carrie Fox tits out scene.
right, where in
Seems
like,
to imply that no one's fucking.
exactly, but she's kind of doing this power move because Ewan's being a little shit,
Yeah.
like banging on the bathroom door
Yes.
with her mail or whatever. Oh,
Right.
right, because she's got like a note from a lover that he's
Yes.
like reading aloud.
Yeah.
And she like opens the door naked and like grabs it.
Right.
And that shuts him up. And it's like one of those things where you're like, ooh, this is like saucy roommate stuff, right?
Right.
Where like, but like there's no romantic element.
No, and I
Specifically.
found the tenor of that scene to me reads as this is not the first time he's seen her naked, but also it has never been in a sexual capacity.
Yeah, and she knows it, and that's why he's shutting up. Because
Correct.
she's like, shut up.
Right.
Fuck you. I
Yeah.
fuck who I want, not you.
I would say based on their relationships and how they kind of unfold, it seems like theirs is like less sexual than the other two. Because
Yeah.
there's like the moment where they're very drunk and
Yes,
cross-dressing.
that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I
Right.
was getting to. Right.
Yeah.
Where
Right.
they do have this kind of brother-sister thing or whatever. But also, it's like they're messing around. It's blurry.
But also the way that Carrie Fox is able to weaponize her sexuality against Eccleston in her own defense makes me think that she has not pulled that ripcord before.
right. Well, he's the more straight and narrow one, right?
Right.
So maybe, like he doesn't call her outside the lines like
Right.
they do.
There's a moment actually I just referenced this at the New Year's party where they're dancing and she's swinging Ewan around and he falls to the ground. And there's a shot of him, perspective looking up at her, and you can kind of see just a little bit of her dress. And I said out loud, Hachi Machi.
Oh, you said that out loud.
I did. Because
Uh-huh. Were you sitting in your lounge in the 50s
I was.
when you did that?
I was in my den.
In a vinyl chair?
Uh-huh.
Your rumpus room?
That's correct.
We're wearing a satin smoking jacket.
I was.
Hachi Machi. Did Nelly punch you on the arm?
She did.
Good. What does Eccleston want with this fucking money? Obviously, he draws a short straw. That's why he has
Sure.
to chop it up. But like, he doesn't even have any fun.
No,
At least they have stupid fun.
that's the thing. I mean, he's fundamentally kind of a joyless guy,
yeah.
right? It feels like.
I mean, and I get that. Like, it's good to have that roommate. It's good to have the roommate
Sure.
who kind of keeps the clocks running in the house, right?
Absolutely.
It's like
Would you be surprised to hear that was never me?
that wasn't you.
No.
Oh no, you weren't the one who was
No.
like, "Hey, we kind of need to figure
No,
out who
so I
cleans the bathroom when."
Really appreciate the value of having an Eccleston at the home.
Here's
so,
the funny thing about me. Same.
Well, I was that person, but I was at times.
Sure.
But I would say I was never the best in that.
Your verse.
I'm more versed than you two,
Yeah.
but I'm more the social chair. Like in a room in a house, like I would be the social chair,
Yeah, but I'd also
the
say
one who's kind of like making plans and like
you
having
are,
people
you are
over.
the Eccleston in the structure of this
Yes,
podcast
I
being
am.
run.
But oh my, maybe that's a suggestion that this podcast is somewhat unevenly balanced.
I don't know about that.
I'll never forget when I told Fran your birthday.
Uh-huh.
It was your birthday.
Okay.
And I said to Fran, it's Griffin's birthday. And she was like, he's a Pisces. And I was like, I guess so. She was like, they were all water signs, David. That's why it's so hard. And I was like, yes.
Well.
But I didn't think about it until then.
Okay.
2 water signs.
You know who else is a water sign?
My daughter.
Yep.
Yes, it's true.
Have a fun one.
Anyway, Eccleston is kind of, I just feel for him. He just doesn't even,
Mm-hmm.
he chopped off some arms and legs and he didn't even get to have like a
feel for him?
he didn't even get to have like a fun evening.
I think this guy sucks. I think
He
that's,
does suck. He is the one that's the most suspicious.
I think that's his own doing.
Because it's
I
like,
feel no pity for him.
do you feel pity for anyone in this movie? Not really, right?
No,
but like
but I
you like the others more.
I enjoy
Yeah.
the others.
And they're silly, and so that almost there's more logic to them doing something so insane. Where
Yeah.
you're like, these people are like arrogant and kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
Eccleston, you're like, you should know better. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Mhm.
And the second, of course, that's why for me, it does track that he goes paranoid.
Sure.
Because he's the one who's just, his brain is like, wait a second. This is gonna come back to haunt me. Why would this guy have money? There are people who must want it. Like, right? He like
Sure.
immediately starts figuring out, like, no, I'm just in trouble.
In a weird way, the movie that this reminded me of, obviously a far more recent movie, but one I had seen before this, is the comedy, the Rick Alverton movie,
Ooh,
which is a bleak movie.
that's a bleak.
Very
Bleak.
bleak.
That
But
makes Shallow Grave looks like fucking Disney compared to
absolutely.
the comedy. Yeah.
But it's similarly about these sort of like rich, disaffected,
yes.
sort of like needing to find some challenge in their lives, like creating conflict.
Apology for the crude word, but this is a British miniseries. We're doing cunts, you might call them.
Hey, now.
But in the comedy, they are obviously, those are people where you're like, oh, they never had a job. Like they've
Yes.
always had money
Right.
because of whatever. Their
Trust fund
families.
babies.
Yeah.
And the conflicts they're creating
Yeah.
are more like small scale social disasters.
Yeah.
But it is that same kind of thing of like, I need to create danger in my life because my life is so insulated.
I mean, that movie is very interesting. I haven't seen it since it came out, and I remember being very arrested by it when I
Yeah.
saw it. But obviously, that movie really poses the challenge of like, can you stick with this when you really hate everybody?
Yeah.
Whereas in Shallow Grave, you're like, I might not like any of these guys, but their demise is accelerating so quickly that I'm compelled just by that. Right?
Well, it's
This is a crime movie.
He's got the sort of B noir hook to it. I
Right.
mean, there was some review I saw that said like the magic of this movie is that it takes what is like kind of a very traditional American 50s B noir plot and marries it to an essential 90s Britishness. It
Yes.
puts
And-
it in
and
a
like
milieu.
social satire.
Yes.
Like modern British social
Yes.
satire. Like
But-
watch
but-
these yuppies get their due.
Cultural setting that you're not used to
Yes.
with this sort of plot. Yeah.
So we're sort of seeing their relationship disintegrate.
Hmm.
And then at the same time, we're seeing these sort of like violent guys. It's
Peter
Peter
Mullen.
Mullen, and the other guy's
The great
played by
Peter
Leonard,
Mullen.
Leonard O'Malley. We love
Mhm.
Peter Mullen.
Yeah.
And if Peter Mullen comes knocking at your door, that is worrisome. You don't want that guy showing up. And they're beating the fuck out of people looking for this money.
Low key, one of the best actors alive.
He's incredible. Have you ever seen My Name is Joe?
No.
You would really like that movie.
Yeah.
That's a Ken Loach movie as well.
Yeah.
But he won Ken Best Actor for it, where
Yeah.
he plays an
No, I'm
alcoholic.
familiar
It's
with
such a
it.
good movie.
Yeah.
But he's a great actor and a great filmmaker.
Great filmmaker in his own right. But
Yes.
but yes, no. I the way they set this up, I think, is kind of ingenious. But the sort of cross-cutting to these acts of like violent interrogation,
Yes. Yeah. Right.
not understanding what the relation is until the threads start to come together. Of these guys are looking for the man they just killed,
Right.
and so these guys are going to end up on our lead's doorstep sooner or later.
And then there's this sort of separate thing where the flat below them gets broken into. The cops show up. That kind of sets everyone on edge,
Sure.
even though it has nothing to do with them, right?
Well, I was kind of thinking it was
Yeah, that was my read too.
Yeah.
That's them looking for them.
Correct.
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
just like
They just
go
miss-
to the wrong floor.
They missed
Right,
the
that
floor.
was my read.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
probably true. Yeah. But then there's just the interaction with the cops where they're like, yeah, there's 3 roommates, no 4th roommates. And the cops are like, we weren't asking about a 4th roommate. And it's like, well, you shouldn't, because they don't exist. And they never have. Never had one. And you can't check. Which is what if some detective was at my door and was
Yeah.
like, what's your name? And I'd be like, I don't know. What's your name? I would just immediately crumble.
You know what's low key maybe the most psycho decision they make in this movie?
What's that?
That they just kind of like sit on the dead body for a couple days and go like, well, let's not rush to any.
Yeah, sure.
They just show them opening the door.
If
like
you're
a couple
sitting
times
on
and
it for
being
more
like-
than a few hours, you kind of do have to chop it up, because at a certain point, it's like you don't want to do the call.
But
Of
they're like, let's just all sleep on and come back to this tomorrow. It feels like they take a couple days before someone even really pitches a plan.
Sometimes dishes can sit in the sink for weeks. You know what I mean?
I guess they're thinking
I
to
get that.
themselves.
Yeah.
They're thinking to themselves like, well, we still could plausibly be like, I don't know, man. He was in his room. We didn't check. We don't know the guy.
Yeah, but at that point,
No, I agree.
You're almost in too deep because then 911 comes, they start asking questions, and you're lying about the timeline. Even if you
100%.
haven't done anything wrong.
This is why you just pick up the phone when you find a
Immediately.
dead body. You
Yes.
know, it's too complicated.
Yes.
David, Christopher Eccleston.
David.
Makes the decision to take the suitcase, move into the attic, drill holes in the floor.
Normal.
Good.
Looks good. I love the lighting scheme. I love what he's done with the place.
Really nice up there.
Right. I mean, it's
Definitely will chill you out to be
Oh,
up there.
yeah.
Right. This is the beauty of casting Eccleston is, it takes very little work to make him look demonic.
Yeah, he looks like and also he's just got the body of like Gary Oldman as the spider monster in Lost in Space, right? He's got this like spindly Frankenstein body.
Yes.
And so
Future
him like,
Smith.
yeah, Future Smith. Him like, kind of crouched on the floor, like peeping through the peepholes.
Yeah.
This is bad peeping.
Oh, real bad.
If my roommate did that,
Mhm.
I would not trust them.
I would move out.
Like,
I thought you were going to go that far, but you instead just.
Well, that's what I think is funny, that they're just like, well, I guess he lives up there now. Like, right?
Well, he's got the money too.
He does have the money.
He does.
I still might like be like, I'm going to go home we're going to go see my parents.
Yeah.
Eccleston moved into the attic. He's drilling holes. I'm going to get the fuck out of here. But they just sort of hang out and he's just up there.
Well, I think it's like, they're all already starting to mull over how can I be the only one with the money?
But I think there's a good point. Like, he gets angry when he comes home and they bought the camera, right?
Yes.
How dare you spend this
How
money?
dare you go around spending the money?
Right.
Yes.
Now, here's a key difference. They're having fun.
They are having fun.
He seems to get no joy in life from anything. And it's like, for him, the value of the money is having the stack of money. Like, it almost feels like he has nothing that he wants to spend it on. There is no pleasure that he can derive from the use of the money. It is truly just having the money. It's like fucking Gollum with the ring or something.
And I think that's what I would do. I would be too afraid to spend it.
Well, you're a money monster.
I am a money monster. And I guess I would just be like, well, at least it's there. Just
Pat it?
patting my suitcase
Pat,
of money.
pat,
At least it's there.
Yeah.
No, I like my plan of cheeky Nando's.
Yeah.
Right? The old thing of like, you know what? You just continue to live your life.
Yeah.
And then once in a while, you peel off a bill. Go do something fun.
Now, see, here's
As
my
long as you don't go buy a fur coat or whatever.
Here's
right?
my
You
pitch.
know?
I'd buy a fancy car with cash.
here's my pitch. Scrooge McDuck, but with paper money. This was the thing I never fucking got about Scrooge. Why is this guy so heavy into coins?
Let me
if he wants to take a lap,
let me throw
You
something
can't-
at
but
you.
you can't really swim. Like paper won't hold
Okay.
you
you can
up.
swim better than you could in coins.
Two things. One, you can't swim in coins
Oh,
either.
you can swim in coins.
cannot swim in coins.
I can
You shut
swim in
the fuck up.
coins. Easy. Easy.
Two, paper cuts. Uh-oh.
Yeah, as opposed to what, fucking copper cuts?
Well, I'm not pro coin pool either.
It's a punch up from coin to paper.
Yeah. I
Look,
mean, it's a fair question. I don't know.
Here's the thing. We got to go right to the root, right? We need to develop a softer currency.
Like a sort of, nice, squishy, fluffy currency.
Yeah.
Like a sort of a velvet, maybe.
What are those fidget toys? The pop 'em? You know the new fidget toys that the kids are obsessed with where it's like rubber and you pop the things?
Yeah, my daughter has a bunch of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what money should be
I
made
call
out
it her
of.
dimple. I think it's called a dimple.
Yeah, I want dimple dollars.
Yeah. That used to be, 20 minutes in the car. Just going.
Well.
The guys show up.
Okay.
David kills them with a hammer.
Bad move. Because now the guy just seems to like murder, or at the very least has made it part of his regular rotation of solutions.
Here's what I would do.
Yeah.
And I love how this is what this episode is turning into.
Yeah.
They'd show up and be like, where's the money? I'd be like, right here.
Yeah.
Please relieve me of this terrible
Yes.
burden.
Yes,
That
I've made
clearly has driven me mad.
Horrible mistakes. Yes.
Now, maybe they're like, all right, we'll take the money and you have to die.
Right.
That's the coin flip there.
Sure.
But, maybe they're just like, great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Here's the thing that I've always said. Murder, a slippery slope. I think you do it once, it becomes a lot easier to do a second time. And that's the real scary part.
Yeah.
It's not great.
No.
And so that's when that's when things get from bad to worse. That's when
Sure.
that's when it's over,
Mhm.
right? When he kills those guys and then
It's so
adds
visceral.
them to the shallow grave.
When the second guy falls down the stairs, like this movie is It's a hard watch at times.
It's interesting
really
because like,
gruesome.
it's interesting to me that it's an 18, which is the highest rating in Britain, because it's not that violent,
But it's-
really. But those little moments are very shocking.
I also think it's the nihilism of the thing.
100%.
I think I view that rating as we cannot let young people watch this morally.
Do you have the Criterion
I do.
box?
Yes.
I love that cover with all the tools.
It's beautiful.
Have you seen the? I'll show it to you.
And there's a Kevin McDonald documentary making of
Oh, that's
from the
cool.
production of the film that I believe is like his first credit as a documentary filmmaker.
That's interesting.
Kevin McDonald, who goes on to do Into the Void. And,
Oh, that's like from the hardware store.
Yes.
That's cool.
Really clever.
obviously,
The original poster was just a shovel
sure.
on a grave.
David, the score of this film.
Simon Boswell's
Yes.
score.
I think it is when they're first burying the pieces of the body in the shallow grave.
Mm-hmm.
And the score does this very intense, like dun 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 dun.
Mm-hmm.
Dun 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 dun. And I was like, why does this sound so familiar?
Tell me.
It was the trailer music for Toy Story 2. I swear to you.
That's really funny.
Isn't that bizarre?
Huh.
And it's such an odd sting that sounds kind of generic that I obviously watch the Toy Story 2 trailer once a week. I always assumed that was some just basic like royalty-free trailer music
Right.
library, generic suspense. Like the Toy Story 2 trailer oddly treats the kidnapping of Woody like it is an Ashley Judd movie and how it's presented. And they use
Watching it now. It's true. This really a desperate plan.
dun 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 dun.
Look, I'm gonna watch it later.
Yeah, and then it
that's
goes
funny.
from that to Danny Elfman's main Men in Black theme
Sure.
to Hold On, I'm Coming by Sam and Dave.
Great.
Just an odd collection.
Three
Anyway,
bangers.
yeah.
Simon Boswell. He'd also done the score for The Crying Game.
Yes.
And so that's cool. I don't know. He's not a big no offense to him, but he's not got a lot of
Santa Sangre, I think he did the Jodorowsky movie as well.
Yes, he did.
That's a good score.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously he doesn't stick with Boyle, but it's everything in this movie is very accomplished given the like tiny budget. Like
Yeah.
Brian Tufano, who also will shoot Trainspotting,
Mhm.
who's like kind of just like a guy. Like he'd done
Sure.
so much. He's like a real old hand. He also shoots Life Less Ordinary. I think they finally split for The Beach.
Okay.
And then Masahiro Hirakubo,
Mhm.
is the editor. And he does Trainspotting, he does The Beach.
Okay.
Yeah. What were we talking about? Oh, yeah, he kills them with a hammer.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. At that point we're in the final act, right?
Yeah.
That's when she buys a ticket to Rio. I really like that scene.
Yes.
With is it Tony Curran?
Oh, yes.
Yes, it's like one of his first. Yes, it's Tony Curran. It's
Yes.
his first appearance in a movie.
Yes.
He's really good in
Good
a
acting.
zillion acting. He's
Yeah.
really good in Red Road, the Andrea Arnold
Yeah.
movie. But like that scene where he's like, direct flight, 700 pounds or whatever. And she's like, great. And he's like, right? Isn't that the scene?
Yeah.
And he starts like throwing other routes at her. And I feel the stress of her being like, we already got it. Like,
Right.
why are you throwing me more routes? I don't know. I really like that scene.
Yeah. But this is when she also tries to make the sort of
She does the seduction.
Survivor style strategic alliance with Eccleston to survive.
Yes.
Yes.
And gets some money from him to buy the plane ticket.
Yes.
Yes. And Alex, as a journalist, is then sent to cover
Assigned,
the
yes.
story of 3 bodies are found in a shallow grave in the woods.
Right.
Yes.
That's
And
such
so
a funny
that's
scene.
when it's kind of like, okay, like, we're in the last stage of this.
That's such a funny scene with his editor in the bathroom where he's like, 3 bodies found dead. And he's like, 3 bodies? I know nothing about 3 bodies. He's like, yeah, I know. I'm assigning you to research.
You're a journalist.
Why are you Yes, you're the one who has to
And
write
I only
the
have 2 roommates,
Yeah.
not 3.
Okay.
You listen here. That other room is an office.
It's so funny to be like, well, I haven't heard anything about that. Yeah, I know. You write the news. I'm telling you so you can report it and other people know about it.
How does he realize that Juliet and David are sort of going against him?
Hmm.
Because that's when the big fight breaks out.
Yes.
I can't remember how he
I don't
exactly puts it together, but they have the big confrontation that ends with Juliet stabbing, Carrie stabbing Eccleston through the neck,
After Eccleston stabs McGregor through the shoulder. Yes.
pinning him to the floor.
Yes.
Which is a great shot.
Yes. The neck gag is pretty impressive.
It is, right?
For a movie of this budget.
It's one of those things that really gets you.
Yeah.
Like if you're looking at it, you're like, oh, okay, sure.
Yeah.
It's fake. I get it.
Right.
But like the way that's staged where it's suddenly him, I don't know, it just really works for me.
Yeah. No. And it doesn't look like a splatter movie gag.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, Carrie Fox makes the decision that I would make.
Decision to leave.
Yeah, like I'm not going to be like, all right, Ewan, let me help you with this knife in your shoulder, right?
Mm-hmm.
I might at that point be like, you know what, I'm out of here,
Sure.
right? Like,
I mean, but did he do her wrong at any point?
no.
She's really like being pretty like callous and just
She
is
is
leaving
taking
him
the
for
money
dead.
and running,
Yes.
Right.
which is generally frowned upon to take the money
Yeah,
and
you're
run.
saying she's making the decision you would make in this situation. I can't even do that mental
what I'm saying.
exercise because I
That's
would
why
never get to
But
this
that's why
point.
I'm interested by it. Where I was like, would I
Yeah.
be like, let me get this knife out of your shoulder? Because I think I would just sort of be like, I'm going to end up killing you or you're going to end up killing me.
See,
I'll do it by
I
mistake or
can't
you'll do
relate
it
to-
on purpose.
I would just
I'm
so
outta here.
obviously be the McGregor in this situation that I can't
You would
relate.
self-shoulder stab.
I'd just be pinned and I'd show up the cops and be like, I'm the victim, I guess.
Well,
Which-
that's the thing. I feel
Yeah.
like if they got together and really like made sure they had a good alibi, all of the kinks worked out,
Yeah.
they could have like gotten away with the money together.
Yeah, but they're assholes.
Yeah.
I love movies that end with
Blanket.
a person. Huh?
Blanket.
Blanket?
Thank you.
I love movies, blanket.
Oh, I
blanket,
love
go
movies.
on.
Blanket. Thank you. You're right. I'm so sorry. I thought you were saying that end with blanket, and I was like, I mean, I do love a nice blanket, comfy.
Yeah.
No, that end with like, I'm fucked. I guess I'll just move forward anyway. Like she opens the briefcase, there's
Oh,
no
sure.
money, and
Yeah.
she's like, well, I'll just get on the plane.
Right. It's just all the newspaper. It's the
It's the
copies of the
newspaper.
paper reporting the 3 bodies.
That's
yeah.
how he's screwing her.
Yes.
Pusher, I just watched Nicholas Winding reference
Oh,
Pusher.
Sure.
That ends with, spoiler alert,
Mhm.
the character being like, I'm probably going to my death right now, but I guess I'm just going to do it. And you don't see it.
Trainspotting somewhat similar.
Trainspotting has a
ending.
bit of that.
Yeah.
There's another one I was just thinking of. The Killing kind of has that.
Yeah.
They're kind of like, well, might as well go this way, even though it's over.
Toy Story 2.
Uh-huh.
And he's going to grow up.
Might as well go this way towards his end of his adolescence.
Listen to Wheezy sing.
I guess she's just like, what's her plan at that point? I'll just go to Brazil, be wanted for murder.
Yeah.
Have no money. See if I can figure that out.
But this is what I'm saying. Don't get to that point, baby.
No,
This is-
you think that's your takeaway?
Look, if any,
My takeaway is no mistakes made here.
if I hold any sway with our listeners, heed my call. Do not murder.
I just love the thing of rather than me seeing crime paying
Uh-huh.
or whatever, like the
Mhm.
cops taking her away
Sure.
or the gangsters getting her or whatever, that she's just sort of like, I don't know. And I'm like, yeah, she's probably screwed, but I like
Yeah,
the
she's kind of fucked.
open-endedness
She
of
can
it.
never go back home. She's going to be looking over her shoulder for the rest
Right.
of her life. Yeah.
And the cops find Alex pinned to the ground and grinning because he's got the
Laughing
cash under the
hysterically.
That's how he screwed her.
Yeah.
He stole the money already.
Yeah.
'Cause he's
Right.
a cheeky bugger.
Well said. His intention is that he lives. But there seems to be people who misinterpret it as he is going to die.
Yes, I think that's why they add that final voiceover, right?
Yes.
Like because some audiences were confused that they thought he was dead too.
Uh-huh.
He kind of, I think maybe there was a shot initially where he just kind of was like laying there glassy eyed,
Okay.
like or what it looked like he was laying
Sure,
there
sure,
glassy eyed,
sure.
and he was like, fuck, people aren't getting it. Here,
Mhm.
well, let me look at the post production here. They edited the post production also short. They edited for 6 weeks.
Okay.
That's short.
Yep.
They have this really good soundtrack,
Mm-hmm.
which is obviously that continues for all Boyle
Yeah.
movies.
Boyle likes music.
Describes himself as a bit of a raver at the time.
Mm.
So you've got Andy Williams and Nina Simone, not Nina Simon, right?
Nina Simone.
He's smart.
Yeah, he wrote Simon here. JJ, I'm sorry for dragging you. I didn't mean to. I was just confused. But also there's like those left field songs, which is like cool British house music from the 90s, right?
I have a hard time picturing Danny Boyle at a rave. There's something so goofy about him.
Pumping glow sticks.
He's got a big fucking head. He's got like a big round head.
I think he was
a bright smile.
I think he was kind of cooler looking in the 90s, maybe. I mean, it's, you know, I'm trying to find like Danny Boyle on set of like, you know, Train Spotting or whatever.
Yeah.
Because he is funny.
I think he has a very open face.
He's such a sweetie pie.
Yeah.
Anyway, the movie was funded by Channel 4. It was distributed by Polygram, which had just done 4 Weddings.
Oh.
And it had this huge success.
Big crossover success.
Exactly. He sees the movie at some test screening, like where they're trying to, and he was like, this is mine. Polygram. Polygram wants this. They put it in Cannes. It premiered there. I think out of competition.
But got kind of immediate lightning bolt response.
Exactly. Like it was one of those things where like they thought they might be in competition in some form, and then they were not. But Polygram squeezed like a midnight screening out of them.
Right. And then they had to add additional screenings.
Right. And it took off. But it doesn't come out. So that's in May 94. Doesn't come out in the UK until January 95.
Wow.
Comes out in America in February.
Okay.
Was a huge hit in Britain. Was a tiny thing in
Highest
America.
grossing local film that year. Yeah. It makes a little impact.
It vanished in America. It was sold as a Hitchcock film there, says Boyle, which he thinks was a mistake.
Okay.
Whereas in Britain, it was more sold as like, this is a cool pop culture moment. You know what I mean?
But that probably affects the way they so deliberately market Train Spotting. That they
100%.
The success of Train Spotting, which we'll get into the next episode, was so much them selling it as like, this is a movement.
Yes, this is the thing. Okay, this is what it was that I was trying to find out. Like Polygram is basically like, we can sell this like an American movie. We don't need to sell this like some boring British thing. Like that it's a British film.
Sure.
Like let's just sell it as a fucking movie, which is exactly what they did
Because I
with
guess
4
there
Weddings
weren't
as well.
cool British movies at that point. You're like, it's either light comedies or
costume dramas.
Yes, right.
And or like art house British films, like Mike Leigh or whatever, where it's like, this is a slice of life
Those
from
are
another
working class,
country.
neorealist.
Yeah.
Right.
So, you know, like I said, the reviews were mostly positive, but a little sneery about the sort of like, this is a very MTV. Is this the British Tarantino? You know, like that kind of thing.
Sure.
Boyle says he finds that comparison embarrassing because he thinks they're very different, but he does say we do both love music.
True.
And he thinks like that's probably why people are making the comparison, because we both like to have like vibrant soundtracks. But you know, like just they had a little money, they had a decent script, they got some good actors, they built a cool set, they made a little movie, people liked it. Guarantor.
It's a statement piece. Yeah, it's just a classic first movie. I wouldn't say this is the Guarantor. I'd say this is the sort of calling card film, and then Train Spotting is the Guarantor.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And then it's more just how it was done back then. You make the tiny movie, then you get to make the little movie. The little movie is.
We've covered some people on this show who have surprising, just hit the ground running, like great first movies.
Yeah.
And we covered people where their first movie feels like a rough draft of something.
Right.
And this is sort of the more standard first film, which is someone figuring their thing out fairly successfully and just kind of planting their flag and going, watch this space. This is a proper functional movie, but now I really know what I'm doing.
Right.
Yeah.
What'd you guys think?
Liked it. Good.
I liked it. It made me feel a little queasy at times. I don't love blood and
Really? Don't love blood?
Makes me a little lightheaded.
What about guts?
Hate him.
This movie doesn't have any guts.
Look, we recorded Train Spotting before this episode just because of guest scheduling. But that's the only other Boyle we've recorded, so we just flipped the order of these two.
Yes.
And this has happened before in the show. Movie suffering a little bit from me just recently having watched Train Spotting,
Good movie.
a pretty phenomenal film
Yeah, that's true.
that I hadn't seen in so long.
This movie,
I was so jazzed rewatching Train Spotting, and this I'm like, yeah, good.
Yeah, this movie is so just indelible to me as like whatever. Just like a movie I saw as a young person.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. I do think it's good though.
Yeah, I do too.
And it's also just nice to see young hotties. You know, it's nice to see Eccleston and Ewan just like, you know, as they're just kicking off.
We talked about it, I feel like, on the
love
Angel on
Carrie
My
Fox,
Table
obviously.
episode, but just, Carrie Fox truly never got the career she deserved.
No, I mean, she's had a career, but yeah, no, it's
Never stopped working, but
it is funny that it's not surprising at all that obviously Ewan quickly explodes out of this in Trainspotting. That's not the least surprising.
This is, you watch this performance and you go, you could place this guy in anything and he is going to be watchable.
And it's not surprising that Eccleston's career going forward in film is mostly like British art films, playing villains in Hollywood movies.
Yes.
And like stuff like, I don't know, Elizabeth or whatever, where it's like, yeah, you're like the third lead in a pretty big British movie. Or
Yeah.
whatever. You know, like you're not going to be.
He's got an odd, interesting career.
I mean, he's a great actor.
Yeah.
He's a really good television actor in
Mhm.
Britain. Done lots of great theater. He's
done,
got
like Heroes and
wonderful
Leftovers
career.
here.
So good in Leftovers.
Yeah. His Doctor Who legacy is obviously very complicated and odd.
But I think he actually did the right thing in a
Oh.
way where he's kind of like, I left it on the table. I did one season. Everyone kind of thinks of me fondly.
Yeah.
I helped relaunch the brand.
Yes.
And every time they want me to come back for like, the 8th Doctor meets the 12th Doctor in the 9th Doctor's house. You
Yeah.
know, he's just like, fuck that. I don't want to do it.
Well, I was digging in after watching this movie. He had always been like, I had a really bad falling out with all the creatives on the show,
Yes,
Russell T.
with Russell
Davies
T.
and
Davies.
co.
Yeah.
And so I was
Who
like,
he worked with a lot before Doctor Who. Like,
Right.
He was huge.
he was basically like, I was done halfway through filming. The first production block of that season, I knew I was done, which is why
Yeah.
the first season ends with David Tennant. Like they already were loaded for bear,
Right.
being
Right.
like, we got to
It's
move
one
on.
season and done. Yeah.
Right. And then he always would be like, I don't really want to talk about it. I don't like the whole culture of that show, all that stuff. And then in the last like 4 or 5 years, he's come around to it and sort of made peace with it.
Yeah.
And now has been doing like audio dramas as the Doctor from his timeline.
Yeah.
And basically has said like, I would now come back and do it, and BBC doesn't want me back.
Yeah. Well,
Every time they do the meetup.
I don't know.
I don't either. I fell way off on Doctor Who.
We all did.
Yeah.
We all did. That's from a different time. I know it's relaunching.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
It's now Disney now.
It's going to be on Disney Plus, right?
Yeah, Disney's now.
I mean, that's
absorbed
good for
Doctor
them.
Who.
But maybe I'll watch the new series. Do you love Doctor Who?
No.
I just wanted to get that reaction.
It's maybe Doctor Who, maybe some of the most unbend shit ever.
Nope. Yeah, I actually can't even see it.
like
if a
it's like you're like
preview
Jeffrey
or-
Wright in Westworld. You're like, doesn't look like anything to me.
Yeah. No,
yeah.
it's just a white screen if it was ever on.
But yeah, Carrie Fox. Yeah, we did kind of talk about this already. She does a lot of movies,
Mhm.
a ton of TV.
Yeah.
Works all the time.
Yeah.
But it kind of does feel like she deserved to be even more famous. I don't know.
Yeah. It's also funny. I mean, I feel like she always talks about Intimacy, which is obviously the movie she does with Mark Rylance that has like unstimulated sex in it on screen. And she's like, it felt like that changed my perception. That was like sort of door closed for me in Hollywood after that movie. Whereas like at that point in Rylance's career, he's mostly a theater guy. He's not doing a lot of film. It feels like people forget that he was the guy in that movie, and then he just sort of like reinvents himself as Mr. Mumbles highbrow 15 years later in movies, wins an Oscar, and now has his space.
Yes. I feel like we already talked about that, but I just, I mean, it is what it is.
It
It's
is
an
what it
interesting movie,
Yeah.
Intimacy. I like that movie. Anything else? Danny
No.
Boyle?
No.
Oh, but the box office game.
Yeah,
Jeez. Almost
motherfucker.
forgot the box office game. Oh, wait, we've done this one.
Have we?
Yes.
Interesting.
And fairly recently, too.
Hmm.
Let me see. Is there an expansion?
Do the Brits have a different name for box office?
No.
No. Okay.
I was trying to think of a joke I could do, but no.
I've
Feels
just
like you should.
I
Yeah.
don't know. Jolly Roger. Like I don't know what
Yeah.
would they call it.
Mm.
Probably not Jolly Roger.
no.
The tally booth.
The tally booth.
Let's
You take the booth where you take the
do-
tally.
I guess let's do this week.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, this is a weird week where it's it's expanded the most. The
That's fine.
weekend
Okay.
it is in like a few theaters is the Quick and the Dead's weekend.
Oh, okay.
So we did that like a year ago.
yeah.
That's a little boring.
Sure.
So in its highest week, it's
Let's make that a rule. It has to be more than a year.
It's got to be right. Like if it's like the fucking Aliens weekend, then it's like, well, we did that 7 years ago. You probably don't remember.
Do you still
that.
play the box office game online?
No, I stopped all of them.
Wow. I've kept.
I went cold turkey in all the daily games.
No, I stopped all the word ones and everything. That's the one I still play.
Obviously, you love the box office game.
Yeah, but there is that funny thing sometimes where I'll be like, "Why is this weekend?" And then I'll remember like, "Oh, this was an episode 6 years ago."
Right. It stirs.
It stirs something.
But
yes,
the movie's in 84 theaters. This is its widest expansion in Britain, in America.
Okay.
This is March 3rd, 1995, Griffin.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
And number one is a new film.
Mm-hmm.
It's from the Walt Disney Company. And it's a comedy.
They should go back to calling themselves the Walt Disney Company.
It's from Buena Vista Distribution.
Yes, that's my favorite. BV.
It's new this week.
Mhm.
It is a solid, mostly forgotten entry in the genre of the kid is in charge now, not the dad.
Is it Man of the House?
It's Man of the House, but there's also Getting Even with Dad.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a third. Obviously, there was a general 90s streak of like, kids rule, dads drool.
Right. Now, Getting Even with Dad was sort of famous folly because it was like a Macaulay Culkin high paycheck.
And Ted Danson is
Yes.
the dad. Have you seen Getting Even with Dad?
I've never seen Getting Even with Dad.
No.
But that was the
neither
one
have
where
I.
it felt like Macaulay was like close to his top quote and the movie bombs and people were like, well, audiences
everyone
go
sick
see
of this?
anything with this kid.
Right.
Man of the House used to play on the Disney Channel a lot.
Of course.
Man of the House, Jonathan Taylor Thomas, Chevy Chase, Farrah Fawcett.
So it's very interesting to me because Jonathan Taylor Thomas is obviously that's like right at the start of
Yes.
or whatever. Home
Yes.
Improvement is hot shit.
Right. I guess Lion King has come out the year before.
And when does Home Improvement start?
Yeah, but I'm saying he hasn't really been doing movies.
No.
He's
He's been on Home
He's getting
Improvement
big.
4 years.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
He's getting big.
Yeah.
People my age, they're always like, "Oh, my first crush was
Of course.
Jonathan Taylor Thomas with
Of course.
his little hair."
And he was like a little sophisticated. He seemed like he had a grown up seriousness.
And
to
I
him.
remember when I was a kid, I was like, "I know who that is."
That kid is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to do whatever that kid's doing.
Chevy's kind of fallen star at
That's
this
what's
moment.
interesting.
It's a
to
little
me.
like,
Chevy's like,
oh, he's got to do
fuck.
one of the. He's got.
I have to share billing with this
Yes.
kid.
And then even like Farrah Fawcett being the mom in that is really like, this is what Farrah Fawcett's career is. I remember that movie being weirdly kind of good. The secret to it is, and this feels like a real Ben's Port classic. Have you ever seen this, Ben?
I have not. But I love is a mischievous kid.
Yes.
Fucking with an
It's
adult.
like-
Fucking with
Chev-
Chevy Chase.
Chevy
Oh,
wants to marry
wow.
his mom.
Right.
And he's like, well, if you want my approval, whatever.
This feels like a real Ben. Like
Definitely.
Jonathan Taylor Thomas is essentially playing Bart Simpson or Dennis the Menace.
Hell yeah.
And Chevy Chase is the guy he's fucking with. But the supporting cast is like George Wendt, David Shiner,
It's a pretty good little.
clowning partner of Bill Irwin. Like it's got good people in it.
You've got Art LaFleur.
Yeah, this
Love
is what I'm
that guy.
talking about.
Yeah.
The Tooth Fairy himself.
Yeah, exactly. Zachary Brown. Can't say I know him. But yes, look, it's 96 minutes of fun. What do you want from me?
I don't know. I
It was
like that
directed by James Orr, who also directed Breaking All the Rules.
Put him on the bracket.
And well, hold your horses. Yeah, I don't know. Well, I've never seen it, but it is number one.
If it's on Disney Plus, I might watch that tonight.
But doesn't it kind of it has a 14% on Rotten Tomatoes? That's not screaming watchability to me.
I'm telling you, this thing hit for me.
And I feel like it's probably the lesser known Man of the House, even though the other one is about Tommy Lee Jones and Christina Milian.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And that one's
Kelly
still-
Garner. Yeah.
I'll tell you this, Griffin, and this is really sad news for you.
Yeah.
The film is streaming on Disney Plus.
Uh-huh.
So for free, if you're a subscriber.
The sad news is now my plans are made for the night.
Yeah, I think that's unfortunate.
Yeah. Look,
You know.
David, I thought the movie was good when I was 5, which means it has to be good, and I will dig my heels in, and you cannot tell me otherwise.
Look, it got a B+ cinema score.
There we go. Number 2 at the box office. We can't talk about this anymore.
You don't want to?
No, because we're going to devote an entire episode to it later.
Number 2 at the box office
Yep.
was number 1 the week before.
Mm-hmm.
It is a very funny comedy.
Okay.
It's based on a television show.
It's based on a television show.
Mhm.
Is it The Addams Family Values?
No. But so it's not maybe that good,
Sure.
but it is a good movie and kind of on those vibes. Knowing Arch.
Oh, is it the first Brady Bunch movie?
That's correct. Betty Thomas's The Brady Bunch movie.
Eddie Thomas. Yes. That's a good movie.
A funny movie.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Ben? The Brady Bunch movie? Gary Cole, Shelley Long, Christine Taylor? Sure Jan?
Yeah.
That's from the first one, right?
Have you never seen it?
No, I did. I saw it in the theaters. I don't
Yeah.
remember anything about
You
it.
know, the joke is like, oh, they're like out of time.
Marsha,
you know, it's
Marsha,
like,
Marsha.
Right. They've just been frozen in time, but they're in Gen X 90s California.
Yeah.
The whole weird origin of that movie is that there was like the LA show that I think Joey Solway was one of the people behind. I know Andy Richter was part of it. Melanie Hutzel, who ends up on SNL. But it was like this LA comedy show where they would restage Brady Bunch episodes verbatim, and it was like
it's so weird, it's funny. Like
Right.
just the show itself, just
Right.
done again, is funny.
and it would
Yes.
play really well to
Right.
this sort of like arch ironic LA alt comedy audience. And then that got so big that Paramount was like, oh fuck, does like Brady Bunch have ironic appeal for this generation?
Right.
And they basically wrote the movie based on the success of this like ongoing LA comedy show.
That's insane. I didn't know that.
And then didn't carry over any of the actors.
Right.
But it was
They
like
got
Melanie
fucked.
Hutzel got on SNL because of that. Andy Richter basically gets on Conan because of that. It was sort of one of these like, it wasn't quite the infamous production of Godspell, but it was like a show that launched a lot of careers because it was such a
It was called
sort of hot ticket in LA.
The Real Live
yes,
Brady Bunch.
yeah.
Right. Yes. And it was Chicago.
Yeah.
Those crazy Chicago kids.
right,
It's
sorry.
Annoyance Theater. It's Annoyance
Yes,
Theater.
it was Annoyance
Yeah,
Theater.
yeah.
Sorry.
Oh,
No,
word.
but that's interesting.
And then I think it
Yeah.
transferred to LA at some point. But it became.
But it is just funny
yeah.
that someone's like, so can we do this? Not this.
Right.
Because they would want our money.
Yeah,
But don't we own the Brady Bunch?
Yeah.
Can we just do that?
yeah. It's just also funny
Gary
that
Cole's just really
it
good.
didn't like transfer to Broadway or anything. Like it was
Right.
a rare example of a studio kind of being not ahead of the curve, but early on it,
Yeah.
where they saw the beginning of the bubbling of the thing.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, this is selling out 100-seat theaters. We should make a $15 million movie. And it worked. And they made a sequel.
They made a sequel that I remember being less good.
Yeah.
Right.
And one of those sequels that comes out like 9 months after the first movie.
Right. Where they were like, right. Yeah. Probably a mistake.
Strike
Okay.
while the iron's hot.
Number 3 is not a movie I automatically know. It is
Okay.
a horror film. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Starring
Spaghetti?
Jeff Goldblum.
It's a horror film starring Jeff Goldblum? Horror
I'm
film?
scared.
Oh, mhm.
Boo.
Boo.
It's directed by a guy
Okay.
who made a it's directed by a guy.
Oh,
Now that's a
fuck.
clue for you to stew over.
Spielberg.
No, let's think no, but it's in between his two best known movies.
Okay.
And both of his best known movies are like VR classics. They're vaporwave ass weird 90s relics.
Is it the director of Lawnmower Man?
Correct. Brett Leonard.
Okay.
And Virtuosity is the other one.
Right.
You know, those two movies where you're like, 90s vision of the future.
Yeah.
Wrong, but cute.
Yes.
This is a movie that he made in between them. That's like
Okay.
I think a straightforward horror movie
Huh.
where Jeff Goldblum plays a guy who dies in a car accident, is revived, and starts to get weird visions and realizes he's like connecting to a serial killer.
I truly might have no idea what this movie
I
is.
didn't know it. It's called Hideaway.
Yeah. No.
Jeff Goldblum, Christine Lottie, Alicia Silverstone,
Hey.
Jeremy Sisto, I think playing the serial killer, Alfred Molina, Ray Don Chong.
Wait a second.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
I'm seeing it got negative reviews. What's going on? Not a big hit either.
Okay.
It's new this week. Number 4. This is why I wanted to do this box office game. I really don't know these movies.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 4. A crime thriller.
Okay.
You thrilled yet?
Kiss, kiss, bing, bang.
Sean Connery is the star.
Okay. I think this movie foiled me in trivia.
I could see you getting foiled by this anonymous ass movie. I'll
Is
tell
it
you
called
this.
Just Cause?
That's right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because I got it wrong. I will now forever remember.
What'd you say it was called? Just Friends? You idiot! That movie has Ryan Reynolds in it.
It was a question. This was what the movie trivia Schmodown, R.I.P. This was a question where they referred to like was 95. like a 95 Sean Connery action thriller.
Sure.
And
And
I
you went
believe-
The Rock or whatever.
I guessed
that's
Rising
96.
Sun?
Rising Sun, sure.
Which
yeah.
maybe that's
That's
94.
93. Wow.
But then I
Sun wasn't
looked up
rising
Just
on you that
Cause,
day.
and
Right.
most people classify it as a legal
It's a legal thriller.
Calling it
'cause
an
he's like
action
a
thriller,
It's not an action thriller.
bit of a misnomer.
Lawrence Fishburne is the second lead there.
Right.
But it's one of those like it's like a capital punishment movie or
Yes.
whatever. He turned down the role of the villain in Braveheart to be in Just Cause.
Wow.
I'm seeing here it got negative reviews. Number 5 at the box office is
Yeah.
another film from Disney, but my guess is it's a
Re-release? What?
no, a
Touchstone.
Touchstone. Let's see. It's a Hollywood, actually.
It's a Hollywood picture?
This one's from Hollywood.
Okay.
And that's how you know the movie's authentic. It's from Hollywood.
Straight from.
It's a comedy drama
Okay. A dramedy. One could call it.
starring 2, older guys. Now, we're not talking grumpy old men.
Oh,
Sure. We're not
damn.
talking Lemon and Math Town.
no, but, kind of in that vibe.
2 older guys.
One of them's they're pretty old. They're pretty fucking old. You know what? They're old.
It's a comedy from 95.
Comedy drama.
So it's not Gone Fishing.
No, because that was pure laughs.
Top to bottom.
You know what? I guess it's really just one old guy. It's starring an old guy.
Okay.
This film was nominated for an Oscar.
In what category?
Makeup.
Fuck.
And I don't know. It's basically like an old guy moves in with his grandson and hijinks ensue.
It's not Dad.
No. What is that again? I know
Dad
that.
is Jack Lemmon, Ted Danson, Ethan Hawke as 3 generations of the same family, but there's a weird amount of old age makeup on Lemmon, who was already old at the time.
Okay, so it's exactly the same vibe as that. Because
Okay.
I think that the main character, who's being played by a guy I think in his 70s, is
Yeah.
like in his hundreds in this movie or something.
What fucking movie?
I
is-
don't know. Here's
so
the
it gets an Oscar
tagline.
nomination for
Makeup.
old age makeup that you're
Yes.
saying specifically. Okay, give me the tagline.
Some people talk. Some people listen. When you're 107 and going strong, you do whatever you want.
And the old guy moves in with his younger.
He's like grandson.
I could not.
I don't know.
I have
okay.
no idea what this
Peter
is.
Falk is in this movie. Columbo himself.
Is he the old guy?
Yes. He sure is.
He's the young guy.
And here's the twist. This guy's young as fuck. Grandpa, why are you riding me?
Is this Peter fucking DB Sweeney?
Yes, that's
Fuck.
right.
What's this movie
DB
called?
Sweeney plays his grandson.
Yeah,
We all know him.
I know this
the
VHS
voice of the
box.
dinosaur in Dinosaur.
Aladar. Very cute.
Wow, that you pulled that name.
It's a running podcast, The Ride bit.
Aladar.
Running podcast, The Ride bit. I gifted Scott Gardner an Aladar.
Good. That sounds like
toy
something you
Aladar.
would do.
I did. You know the recent thing I did where I gave Scott Gardner from Podcast The Ride, his son.
You gave him 80 Kingo toys or
I gave
whatever.
him 15 Kingos.
Because his son genuinely likes Kingo from Eternal.
His son loves Kingo from
That's
Eternals.
his name, right? It's a Camille's
Yes.
character.
Now
Yes.
Scott has started to say he thinks that at this point he thinks Kingo is the name of Funko Pops. Like for him, Kingo
like
is
they are all
square head,
Kingos.
dot eyes.
Right.
But all he knows is he owns 15 Funko Pops of Kingo. Okay, sorry. This movie is called fuck.
All right. I'm just going to give it
Yeah.
to you.
I keep on thinking it's the thing about my folks, which is the Peter Falk,
It's not.
Paul Reiser movie.
I'll tell you that this film was directed by the great Peter Yates, who's made a
Jeez.
lot of good movies.
Yeah.
And so maybe this movie is good.
Mhm.
It's called Roommates.
Dude, I never would have gotten that title in a billion years.
Roommates.
That's wild that I knew what movie it was, and the
You
title
knew
was
that
nowhere close
the
to me.
poster says Peter Falk, DB Sweeney.
Yeah.
Roommates.
Mhm.
And it was Oscar nominated.
That's wild.
Lost to Braveheart.
For makeup.
Speaking of roommates, I found the meme I was talking about.
Hit
Okay.
it.
Having roommates in Portland be like, Sock wants to know why you're weaponizing your neurotypical privilege by asking them to do the dishes.
Yeah, that one's good. Now I know what you're talking.
You know why it's funny?
Sock.
Those youngsters.
Mhm.
Shallow Grave.
Shallow Grave. David,
Yes.
final thoughts as we launch into Danny Boyle? A man you've been waiting for years to cover on this show. We've sort of settled into this rhythm we've talked about now with the way we schedule this podcast.
Yes.
Where basically our March Madness will usually start in the second half of the year, run about towards the end.
Yes.
And then we usually try to start off each new year with a David and a Griffin.
So
A David pick and a Griffin pick.
this is the David.
This is your pick, and this is one that's been in the hopper for a long time.
So it's hoppy. This is like a double IPA at this point.
Absolutely.
And then your pick is pretty hoppy too.
Yeah.
Been hopping.
Yeah.
Your pick is like fucking the WB frog.
It's a swing.
So those are planned.
Yeah.
Those are booked. Those are going to be very exciting.
Yeah.
Mostly I'm just like anyone who's complaining about this, look forward to like it just a lot of wild swings between genres, between like sort of industries even.
Who would complain about this? Is like a classic blank check.
No one complains about anything on the internet.
No.
No, 2023.
Other than you not being British enough.
2023, positive energy.
Uh-huh.
And I think we have a lot of great stuff
Hot
coming
Griffin,
up.
Hot David.
This has been our classic
Ben.
guest list first episode of the miniseries where
One of
we're
those.
kind of both like, I don't know, but
Yeah.
get ready.
But I think
Danny
Transpotting is
Boyle.
a corker.
And we're also just going to try to mostly be in person for these episodes.
Yes.
We'll have a couple Zoomers with some LA folk or whatever.
We got a couple, but
Sock from Portland, what a Zoomer he is.
look, we got our studio now. It's coming together nicely, but more than anything, it is the true pleasure of having a stable home that we can invite people into and do these records looking at other human faces
It's just so
in
much better.
real life.
Yes. I love
Um,
faces.
I love them. Thank you all for listening.
Yeah.
Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you to Marie Barty for our social media and helping to produce the show. Thank you to JJ Birch for our research, AJ McKeon, Alex Barron for our editing, Lee Montgomery, The Great American Novel for our theme song, Joe Bowen and Pat Reynolds for our artwork. You could go to blankcheckpod.com for some links to some real nerdy shit, including our Patreon, Blank Check special features, where we do commentaries on some of Hollywood's biggest franchises. And what franchise is bigger than the Kotze trilogy?
Nakoi Katsi coming February 1st.
Spoiler, in contention for the worst movie we've ever covered on either feed.
The vibes start good, and then around minute 1,
Yes.
things start to curdle.
We're talking the
By
host,
minute 2, we're out.
Alice in Wonderland. We're talking things that are not movies. It is arguably worse than...
You know what I mean? It's like vibes. Minute 0, we're like,
Yes.
this is fun. Minute 1, we're like, this kind of, I'm not sure what's going on. In minute 2, we're like, worst piece of shit we've ever
Look,
seen.
I think it's a fun episode.
Oh, it's a great
We go
episode.
full Comedy Central roast. We're just trying out jokes. But I will say, as a movie, if I'm just viewing it as a movie that we have discussed on the show, as a movie, it is worse than the Dunkin' Donuts cup that Ben barfed into in the backseat of a car on the way to Atlantic City.
I agree with that
If I'm
statement.
just judging it as a film,
Yes.
that's a better movie, that
Yeah.
cup.
Yeah.
So listen to that. And a thing we want to start reminding people of more regularly, because we've been doing this for the last year, but we've been forgetting to mention it. We unlock all Patreon episodes after 3 years.
Yeah.
So our first year of Patreon 2019 is now completely open for everyone. And every 10 days on our Patreon, if you are subscribed, if you are a checkmate, you will get a new episode. But if you are not subscribed, there will be an unlocked, accessible to anyone episode from essentially the 2020 archives. All this is to say, all of the Marvel commentaries are now unlocked from 2019. 2020, you'll be getting the Star Wars commentaries
Yeah, and then other stuff.
coming
right?
up, Toy Story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of weird pandemic commentaries coming up, but they're pretty fun.
Yeah, there's some. Look, if
Yeah.
you like hearing us talk about Toy Story and Star Wars, 2 franchises that are important in the history of the show, those are things you can listen to. All the Marvel commentaries unlocked. Also, obviously, other things like the Atlantic City episode we just talked about, THX, American Graffiti,
Thicks.
all sorts of fun stuff. Marvel Performance Review with Gethard. That's a great episode.
That is a great one.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can check it out the 1st, the 11th, and the 21st of each month. It'll be available noon Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah, you just want to go to patreon.com/blankcheck, and those will now just be unlocked posts. Also, new merch.
Yeah. Yeah. We got some new merch.
Anyway, tune in next week for Trainspotting. with returning guest Charles Rogers of Search Party.
Yep, great up.
Great up. I think really, really, really
Great up with a great bit.
There's
That lands. Whew, smooth.
yeah. And
especially listening to
I
it.
was going to say it's very visual.
Very visual.
Maybe one of the most visual bits ever done on this show.
Don't get too alarmed, guys. I'm talking about like a 2-minute moment in the episode. It's just funny to think about.
It's just funny how visual it
Yes,
is.
yes.
And labor intensive.
Yeah, incredibly labor intensive. Not by us, but
No, by Charles. A gentleman and a prince. And as always, don't chop up bodies. I'd like to ask you about your hobbies. Now, when you sacrifice a goat and you rip its heart out with your bare hands, I gotta start this over. Jesus Christ.
You got this.
This is gonna be a tough miniseries.